Brian Jordan's pleased to see his St. Louis Cardinal teammates begin to play up to expectations, winning 5 of their last 6. Ray Lankford leads the team in homers and RBIs as the Redbirds now contend in the Central, especially with the imminent return of Ron Gant from the DL. The Rockies have won 8 of 10. Larry Walker, with 6 consecutive extra base hits last week, set a National League record. And the big cat, Andres Galarraga, already with 43 RBIs, leads the Rocky squad batting .284, best in the National League. Next from St. Louis, the Rockies and the Cardinals. All night long, all morning long, brutal weather in St. Louis, but it's clearing up just in time for Memorial Day baseball. The Rockies take to the road, and the Cardinals come home after being gone for 2 straight weeks. Welcome to Busch, Bob Carpenter with Dave Campbell. And Dave, these Rockies really are a Jekyll and Hyde ball club. A week ago, they sweep the Cardinals in dramatic fashion at Coors Field. But on the road, it's been a whole different story for this ball club.
Really, it's been that way for the entire existence of the franchise, but really magnified this year. They're hitting .339 at home, averaging 7.7 runs a game. But on the road, just .213, worse than the majors, averaging 3.4 runs a game. And Larry Walker kind of personifies that. He's only hitting a .139 with 5 RBIs on the road.
And, of course, they're getting good table setting up front from Eric Young and Ellis Burks. And the Cardinals will throw a very good pitcher at this lineup today in Todd Stottlemyre. His last 3 times out, he's averaging double-digit strikeouts, and he looks like the horse Tony La Russa thought he was bringing with him from Oakland.
He really seemed to have a breakthrough year last season in Oakland with Tony La Russa and Dave Duncan. He went 14-7, 205 strikeouts. A little bit of a slow start this year, but on fire lately with 33 strikeouts in his last 24 1/3 innings. He has been pitching great ball. He still hadn't won a game at Busch Stadium, though, yet.
And speaking of on fire, that's been the bat of the Cardinal first baseman, John Mabry. Hit for the cycle against the Rockies last week, coming off a red-hot road trip. The Birds and the Rocks from St. Louis. Much Carl Ravitch, Don Baylor watching as the Cardinals take the field. Cards swept at Colorado just over a week ago, and the Rockies are leading the league at .284. Their batting order brought to you by GMC Trucks. They're 4th in homers and on top of the league in average. It's Eric Young, Ellis Burks, and Dante Bichette. A big, heavy middle of the order with Walker, Galarraga, and Castilla booming the bats. Jeff Reed, a great job behind the plate so far. Walt Weiss, who Tony La Russa wanted to bring to St. Louis from Oakland. And, of course, it's Ritz on the mound for the Rockies, and today they face 30-year-old Todd Stottlemyre, 14-7 last year. Dave Campbell, he's 4-2, but as you mentioned, he has yet to post a W on the home field yet.
Well, he was really a big part of that road trip when the Cardinals got off 1-5 and came back to win 5 in a row. He had a terrific game where he struck out 13, had another game in Houston where he left the bases loaded twice. He's a great competitor, and the 62 strikeouts put him in the top 10 in the National League. He's at number 9.
Cardinals defensively, most of the season, have been one of the worst in the major leagues. They've made more errors than Houston, 52-51. The Red Sox have the most in the American League at 49. Sweeney's in left field because Ron Gant is still on the DL, and Tom Pagnozzi's been catching almost every day.
And Luis Alicea, who came back over from Boston, he was a former Cardinal. He has 12 errors, and they have a new field here in St. Louis, no longer the AstroTurf. And I talked to a lot of Cardinal people and said, is it the field? They said, no. Most of the errors are throwing errors.
Yep. In Alicea's defense, playing next to Royce Clayton, Luis made most of his errors early, not that many lately. Clayton has been solid at short, and Ozzie Smith is on the bench today. The field is wet. Ground crew's been working hard since the rain stopped about 10 o'clock Central Time this morning. So less than 2.5 hours after those hard rains, this ball game will get underway. As Ozzie watches, he's played in 13 games this year, only 38 at-bats.
Still some rumors circulating about a possible trade to St. Louis, or excuse me, to San Diego. What have you heard? You're here in St. Louis.
Well, I've heard that rumor as well. Of course, that's where Ozzie started. Stottlemyre's first pitch of the game, he drops one down and in and misses. Eric Young with a very good on-base average of .418. He's been a table setter with Burks for this potent lineup. And then Stottlemyre gets the fastball to the outside corner. He's a fastball, slider, curve, change pitcher. His most devastating pitch to right-handers, though, is that hard slider. And there it is. Didn't get the call from Terry Tata.
Kind of interesting, right out in front of home plate. It appears to be very wet. Home field can tailor the field the way they want. If Stottlemyre is a ground ball pitcher, they may want to slow the ball down.
And the fastball runs to the inside corner. Todd Stottlemyre came from Oakland in a trade for Alan Battle, an outfielder, and 3 young pitchers. And there's a base hit out to right center. Eric Young reaching for that breaking ball away. Ray Langford came in to hold him to a single.
Bob, the table setters for the Rockies, the last 10 games when the club has gone 8-2, Eric Young and Ellis Burks have been absolutely unbelievable. The two of them with a .462 combined on-base percentage, and have scored 30 runs in 10 games, the two of them. So they've gotten aboard for Bichette, Walker, and Galarraga.
This a ball club that recently won 9 straight at home over a couple of homestands. Can they sustain it on the road? Ellis Burks has been outstanding lately. That was close as Stottlemyre gave Eric Young his good move on the first throw over there. John Mabry is the first baseman. Bill Hahn is the umpire, and a guy named Griffey is the coach over there. And kids all over the country are saying, who's he? I thought he played for Seattle.
Father of.
Yes, sir. And a pretty good hitter in his time as well.
290-plus lifetime, and of course he and Junior hit back-to-back homers when Ken closed out his career with Seattle. Certainly one of the thrills. Appears to be pretty wet on the base paths. Eric Young, when Stottlemyre made that move over, slipped on the first step going back, so it's going to be treacherous running the bases.
And that fastball runs in there, 0-2 to Burks. This is a field that was not installed until February. So the infield has been a little cakey and soft in the first 2 months of Cardinal baseball at the new Busch Stadium. But they've got an underground heating system, a drainage system. They said this field could take 3 inches of rain in an hour and still be playable.
Well, the new prescription athletic turf that's being installed in all these new ballparks has the marvelous drainage. Coors Field out in Denver, where the Rockies play, snow is never going to be a problem unless it's just a blinding blizzard, because it has the 58-degree heating underneath. It melts it all off, and they have a great drainage there as well.
High fly ball left field. Backing up is Sweeney on the track, and he's got it. No, it's out gone. He looked like he was going to catch the ball. And it sneaks over the yellow line, 2-0 Colorado. At Coors Field, that ball's about 30 rows up. Here in St. Louis, it barely snuck out, and Ellis Burks has his 11th homer of the year.
I don't know what happened to Sweeney. He just reached up. All he had to do was just jump a little bit. He just misplayed it. I'm not sure if the ball hit off the top of his glove or not. We will get a second look in slow motion. Ellis hits it well, but it appeared the wind helped it too. Now, Sweeney looks like he's in control. Doesn't even jump, just puts his glove up and just misjudged it. It was over the fence. I don't know if he had trouble seeing it, but there certainly doesn't seem to be any sun that's a factor.
Here's Dante Bichette. Stottlemyre gives up his 9th homer of the year in 66 innings. And the Rockies have hit their 57th. This has always been a ballpark known as a place where you could throw a fastball out over the plate and get a fly ball to retire a batter if you needed to. You know, it's 3 feet shorter in the gap out there because of the new bullpen. And those 3 feet made a big difference on that home run. Bichette has gone on a sidearm breaking ball, 1 out.
Well, for Ellis Burks, he continues his onslaught against the Cardinals. Coming in, career-wise, he was 22 for 46, a .478 average, and that was his 6th home run and 16th RBI. So he has just killed the Cardinals in his tenure in the National League.
He's looking as good as he did 2 years ago before he got hurt. Here's Larry Walker, who more than anybody else right now personifies how the Rockies bang at home and struggle on the road. He goes long to right center field. Brian Jordan watching this one disappear into the bleachers. 3-0 Rockies on 2 home runs. Burks a 2-run shot. Walker his 12th, a solo.
Larry Walker's first at-bat of the year was on the road. It was against Sid Fernandez of the Phillies, and he had a home run and drove in 2. Since then, he's only had 3 runs batted in on the road until that shot, and that was a no-doubter. That's a home run anywhere. Larry thinks he's got it. He's in the trot. Jordan can only look up.
39th RBI for the Colorado center fielder. And Galarraga will be the batter. And one of the most wide open, unusual stances in all of baseball by the big cat. He'll bring that front foot around and get into a hitting position. But when he sets up, Dave, it looks like any outside pitch would get him out.
Well, he goes into the ball, and that's why he gets hit quite a bit, too. He'll close off that stance right there. And you leave a fastball up and out over the plate, and he will drive it to right center. If you make the good breaking ball like Stottlemyre did right there, he is not going to hit it. He's second in the league in strikeouts behind Sammy Sosa.
0-2 pitch, and Stottlemyre misses up and away. Now, Todd Stottlemyre, in his most recent starts, has struggled in the first inning. Almost 2 weeks ago, he threw a shutout at the Marlins at Joe Robbie, walked a couple, had an error to pitch around in the early innings, and he gets Galarraga to pop up. Ray Lankford cruising in, and that's the second out. And then in Stottlemyre's most recent start last week in Houston, the Astros stranded 13 base runners. Of course, they lead the major leagues in stranded runners. And Stottlemyre, after throwing 50 or 60 pitches in the first couple of innings, somehow stuck around until the 8th. Got the win, but he has been hit hard so far today, and here's Vinny Castilla.
Well, he's also thrown quite a few pitches in his last 2 starts, and maybe sometimes that catches up with you.
Well, Vinny Castilla, a road/home guy last year. 23 homers at Coors Field, batted over 380. On the road, only 9, and batted under 230. Stottlemyre misses with the breaking pitch. That'll even the count, a ball and a strike.
Well, obviously, one of the goals the Rockies had coming in this year was to erase that stigma that they can only hit at home. But actually, it's been more exacerbated this year with that 339 average at home and 213 on the road. They'd like to use this road trip to make a statement.
Rockies are 6 games back of the Padres. Dodgers are playing better. They've won 3 straight, 4.5 back of San Diego. And the Giants are a game ahead of Colorado. Ron Baylor's team chasing some pretty good ball clubs, Dave.
Yeah, the Western Division of the National League, the only division in baseball that all teams are at 500 or above. Rockies a little frustrated. They went 8-2 in their last 10 games, but have really only gained 1 game on the San Diego Padres.
Not all the teams in the league are playing on this Memorial Day. In fact, the Dodgers and the Giants are both off. The Padres play at Montreal, and they throw Joey Hamilton, who's 7-3 against 3-4 Jeff Fassero.
Don't make any mistake about it. The San Diego Padres are for real. They have terrific pitching, and they may have the best bullpen in baseball.
Here's the 2-2. There's that hard breaking ball as Stottlemyre gets the slider over. Castilla frozen at the plate. But Young a base hit, Burks a homer, and then Larry Walker with 1 out. Looks like he's starting to heat it up on the road, and the Rockies score 3 in the top of the first. Well, the Cardinals have some work to do offensively as the Rockies pick up 3 in the top of the first inning. St. Louis, a .268 team, batting average-wise, and only the Padres have hit less homers than has Tony La Russa's club, although the Cards did come alive with 14 home runs on their 12-game, 2-week road trip. Cardinal lineup brought to you by GMC Trucks. Rather unusual leadoff man is Mark Sweeney. We'll explain that move by Tony. Clayton and Jordan, the top 3 as well. And then Ray Lankford, Gary Gaetti, and John Mabry, who's 6th in the league in batting. Tom Pagnozzi, Luis Alicea, and Stottlemyre. And today the Cards face 30-year-old Kevin Ritz, 11 and 11 last year. And he's got a .500 record this time around.
Fritz has struggled in the early going. He is up amongst the leaders in base on balls. He has allowed 15.2 runners per 9. Rockies are last in the National League in ERA. In fact, in the major leagues, only the Detroit Tigers worse. And the common denominator each of those clubs have, the Tigers lead the American League in walks, the Rockies the National League in walks.
Rockies defensively. And most National League fans remember that Larry Walker was primarily a right fielder in Montreal, then his early days in Colorado. Jeff Reed's been good behind the plate. Dave, why have they made the switch in the outfield?
Basically, Ellis Burks was really having trouble reading the ball off the bat in center field, and he feels more comfortable in left, Bichette in right, and Walker has played well in center. There are some who say, hey, you've taken a Gold Glover out of right and put him in center, but he is their best center fielder.
Mark Sweeney, the Cardinal leadoff man. He's a good hitter, good young hitter. He came over from the Angels in a trade for John Habian last year. And, of course, Habian now a member of the Rockies bullpen. Sweeney had 7 consecutive pinch hits for the Cards last year coming off the bench. St. Louis has not had one of the little speed guys really take over as the leadoff man. And Sweeney, even though he doesn't run well, has an on-base average of .442. That's one of the reasons Tony La Russa has him leading off. The other is Tony likes a speed guy batting 8th to be sacrificed by the pitcher. Then he likes having a leadoff man who can drive in runs. And, of course, he had a good one for many years in Oakland. Ricky Henderson could do just about anything. Sweeney is not that kind of player, but he can drive in people from first and second base. 1-2. Jammed in with a breaking ball, and Sweeney fouled it off his foot.
Yeah, you got to do it.
They were like talking about it.
What?
Somebody was reading numbers.
The one thing Mark Sweeney has had problems with from right-handers the last week or so has been the changeup down and away. Been pulling the string on him some. That's a breaking ball hit up the middle. Eric Young gets behind the ball and throws to Galarraga for the out.
Eric Young has played brilliantly in the field, and he is not a natural infielder. He doesn't have the gifted hands, but he has not made an error this year. Sweeney going up the middle. Young, who does have good range, gets over, gloves it, and makes the perfect throw to Galarraga. So Eric Young, who missed the first 20 games of the year with a broken hand, but since then, he has been the catalyst, especially offensively, but he's played very solidly in the field.
And here's the former Giant, Royce Clayton. He came out the first 2 weeks as the Cardinals' leading RBI man, along with Ron Gant. And he struggled for a while.
Pretty aggressive hitter. The only thing, he doesn't draw a lot of walks. He had the lowest on-base percentage of any hitter in the National League last year.
And that's why he's not leading off for the Cardinals. Clayton's on-base average right now, .328 to go with that .265 batting mark. And is hit out to short. Walt Weiss to his left, 2 down. During the offseason, the Cardinals, of course, were shopping for a shortstop. Tony La Russa and Walt Jocketty really wanted Walt Weiss to come to St. Louis, and he decided to stick in Colorado. Good for the Rockies, and he is very, very steady, Dave.
He is. He had a lot of trouble Saturday night throwing a wet baseball. It rained all weekend at Coors Field, and he kept getting some grass cutters. He made 2 errant tosses, and sometimes that can weigh in your mind. Probably good to get a ground ball out of the way early in this one.
And Brian Jordan, the next batter, after Clayton was retired. Jordan only 6 for 35 on the 2-week St. Louis road trip. But those 6 base hits, 6 for 35, did result in a couple of home runs and 9 RBIs. He's still learning the game, though. I mean, he's not that far removed from being the football/baseball guy.
Well, he gives a lot of credit to former batting coach Chris Chambliss. They really cut down and made his swing a lot more compact. A couple of years ago, he hit .042 with men in scoring position. Last year, he jumped it all the way up to .321.
Pretty good 1-2 pitch there by Ritz. Had Jordan leaning out to reach the breaking ball. Sort of a breakthrough year for Brian Jordan in 1995.
Well, obviously a great athlete, and he's still learning this game of baseball, as you said, but he's maturing quickly.
Right at Walt Weiss, this one. And a good sign for Ritz with 3 ground balls early. He throws the sinker, and the Cards sunk 3 right into the dirt. Well, a big first inning for the Rockies. They set a good tone for their first inning of their road trip as they hit a couple of homers and lead the Cardinals 3-0. It'll be Jeff Reed, then Walt Weiss right there in the on-deck circle, followed by the pitcher, Kevin Ritz. And Jeff Reed, familiar to some National League fans. He has come on here in Colorado. Jayhawk Owens suffered a thumb injury in spring training. There's Stottlemyre with a pretty good changeup. And then Jeff Reed has sort of taken over, and they haven't been able to get him out of there.
Well, the 6 home runs ties the career high, and he's had some huge hits for the Rockies so far this year. He's currently in an 0 for 10, his first little slump of the year.
And a breaking ball is down low. He hit a homer against the Cardinals in that dramatic come-from-behind win when the Rockies got 5 on Eckersley in the ninth a week ago Saturday. Little pop fly behind third. Gaetti chasing it, and the ball hits just foul. And down there in the left field corner, you can see the new configuration of the seats here at Busch Stadium. What they did was they took the left field and the right field corners and turned those seats back toward home plate, sort of like a little mini Fenway type effect.
Yeah, I mean, it gives this ballpark a little bit of character, too. I mean, this is one of those, quote, cookie-cutter parks that were built in the late 60s, early 70s. I mean, the Vet in Philadelphia, Riverfront in Cincinnati, Three Rivers, rounded, multi-purpose stadiums. But they've made some great additions here. This really looks like a neat ballpark now as we take a look at the visitor bullpen, which is now underneath the left field fence.
And that's where the bullpens were when this ballpark opened up in 1966. Cardinal bullpen is out in left center. They removed a section and a half of the bleachers, put a little fan picnic area up above it, and moved in the fence 3 feet, which might have cost him that home run earlier. As Ellis Burks just did sneak one out of here. Hard-breaking ball by Stottlemyre, and he's now fanned 3 of the 4. He has retired. Well, this is our Memorial Day doubleheader on ESPN, and coming up Wednesday night, it'll be Mike Piazza and the Dodgers, and this is our game later today. Mo Vaughn, Mark McGwire, the Red Sox, and the Athletics. Tim Wakefield scheduled to go for Boston. Steve Wojciechowski for Oakland. Dwayne Statz and Joe Morgan will handle it for you from the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum. Speaking of ballparks undergoing changes, no balls and 1 strike to Walt Weiss.
See the .421 on-base percentage, 5th in the National League for Walt. He finished 3rd last year in the National League in on-base percentage. Really an unsung offensive player. He gets aboard in that 8-hole and gets the pitcher up and out of the way a lot of times when there's 2 outs. There's only 1 here.
5th best on-base average in the National League at .421. He's in the top 7 in walks with 29. Not bad for a guy who bats way down there. And, of course, that was a luxury the Rockies like having. And there's another strikeout on a nasty breaking ball down and in from Stottlemyre. Walt Weiss can hit in that 8th spot because Eric Young, since midseason last year, has been so good in that leadoff spot.
Well, Stottlemyre's gotten all of his strikeouts with the breaking ball, and this one really is disappearing in a hurry. Weiss could not hold up the swing.
And if recent trends hold true, Dave Campbell, the Rockies maybe better score some more runs before Stottlemyre gets going, because his last couple of starts, he has had some early inning struggles. But if he gets into the 5th or 6th inning and he's in a dogfight with you, he's a tough guy to beat.
Now, one thing that Dave Duncan did when he got a hold of Todd is really preach strike 1. I mean, that's almost every pitching coach's philosophy, but he just kept really grinding that on Todd because all of a sudden Stottlemyre last year had that breakthrough season. 205 strikeouts in a shortened year, 14-7, and became a hot commodity.
And he'll give up some base hits and give up some runs. His earned run average last year, winning 14 games, was 4.55. not exactly stingy. Here's a 1-2 to the opposing pitcher.
Ritz 1 for 17. First year he was 0 for 20, and then he became a little bit of a threat with the bat last year. But I think against Stottlemyre, he's going to be pretty hard pressed to put one in play.
Stottlemyre has fanned 3 in a row. There's a little contact out to short. Royce Clayton charging, and a little flip over to Mabry. And the Rockies are gone in the second inning in order. 5 straight for Stottlemyre since the Larry Walker home run, and the middle of the St. Louis order coming up. Cardinals will send up Langford, Gaetti, and Mabry as they trail by 3, bottom of the second. Coming up on ESPN's Wednesday night doubleheader, it'll be the Dodgers. Mike Piazza, Nomo scheduled to pitch. They take to Philly to take on the Phils and Incaviglia at the vet. And then Paul O'Neill, Tino Martinez against slugger Jim Edmonds and the Angels at the Big A. It's scheduled to be Finley and Kamenicki in that one. We'll go National League, American League for you on our ESPN Wednesday night doubleheader coming up a little over 48 hours from now. So a full dose of ESPN MLB action this week. From St. Louis, Bob Carpenter with Dave Campbell. And the bottom of the second coming up. The Cardinals trail 3-0 on a 2-run homer by Burks, a solo shot by Larry Walker. Ray Langford, with Ron Gant hurt for the last couple of weeks, nursing a bad hamstring, has been the Cardinal cleanup man. One of the streakiest hitters in all of baseball. He can look awful for a week, and then he can take a ball club and put it up on his shoulders and carry him around for 10 days or 14.
Well, he can also take a baseball and hit it a long ways. We found out in Denver last week. Larry Walker had hit the first home run ever in Coors Field in a year and a half into the third deck. Didn't really get 24 hours to savor it, as Ray Langford the next day hit one 483 feet, which is the longest home run this year in the major leagues. And he absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, we're told the longest home run in baseball in about the last 3 or 4 years. And you know it had to happen in Colorado. 1-2 to Langford. Walker's had traveled 475 on a Saturday night. And Larry's shoulders slumped a little bit in right field when he saw Langford's shot disappear out of sight. Breaking ball, Langford strikes out. It'll require a throw from Jeff Reed to Galarraga. 4 straight for Kevin Ritz. Well, the Central Division of the National League looks a lot like the AL West of the last couple of years. Nobody is over 500. In fact, Houston had to sweep the Cubs to get back to within 1 of 500 after the Cardinals won 3 at the Dome last week. You get hot for a week, you're in first place. Here's Gaetti coming over from Kansas City.
There's an upset. He just took the first pitch. The most notorious first ball hitter in baseball, Gary Gaetti.
He hacks one in the air down the right field line. It hit off the end of the bat, and it'll drop to the left of Dante Bichette. 1 on, 1 out. Let's check in with Carl Ravitch.
Bob, St. Louis just a game behind Houston in the loss column, and the Astros in Pittsburgh and all over them early. James Mouton, your number 7 hitter in the first inning. Anytime the 7 hitter gets up, there's problems. A triple, and this would score a run. This was the second triple of the inning. Biggio had one earlier. Bagwell a double. It is 4-0, and the Astros are on top.
All right, Carl. Darryl Kyle on the mound for Houston today against Zane Smith. Kyle, one of those good young pitchers who's trying to do something with all that stuff he has. Here's John Mabry, who did something a week ago Saturday that no player in Major League history had ever done. And that's hit for the cycle. Single, double, triple homer in 4 straight at-bats. Hard to believe, Dave, but nobody ever did it.
Yeah, but in that order. Single, double, triple homer. Other guys have done it in 4 at-bats, but never in that particular order. The single, the double, the triple, and the homer. So John Mabry, but it all went down the wide when the Rockies scored 5 in the bottom of the 9th. It took a little luster off it for Mabry. As Tony La Russa said, we should be in here celebrating an unusual feat in Major League history, and instead we're really down.
That was the last time Dennis Eckersley pitched for the Cardinals. He went on the DL yesterday, retroactive back to the day after that game with elbow problems. T.J. Matthews, a young second-year pitcher, is the Cardinal closer right now. Mabry at 340 is number 6 in the National League. And a breaking ball gets him. Now the last 2 Ritz has retired have been on strikes.
Well, Kevin Ritz at times last year was easily the Rockies' best pitcher, but he's been extremely inconsistent this year. His last start against Pittsburgh, his previous start against the Cardinals, they got 5 runs in 2 innings and knocked him out. His last start against Pittsburgh, in the 5th inning, he had the bases loaded and nobody out. And he went through Al Martin, Jeff King, and Orlando Merced, striking out 2 and getting a ground out, walked in the dugout and looked Don Baylor right in the eye and said, "Is that what you're looking for?" And Baylor said, "I've been waiting for it for about 3 years." And I think it gave him a huge amount of confidence. He's pitching very well in the early going today.
Well, here's Tom Pagnozzi, former Gold Glove winning catcher. Had a bad wrist coming out of spring training. Pat Borders, who came over from the American League, played very well. He won a job on the club. Danny Schaefer's the other catcher. For the last 2 weeks, they've had trouble getting Pagnozzi out of the lineup. He starts this day batting .301.
First time Ritz has shown any inconsistency. 2 wide breaking balls not close to Pagnozzi. 2 balls, no strikes. Pags has worn the Rockies out. He had that 2 home run game back in Denver.
2 of his 3 on the year. Gaetti at first base, 2 down. And the fastball is up and in, ball 3. Cardinals are 5 under 500, as you saw, 2 back of Houston. They've not played that well on their home field so far, winning 9 and losing 12. They have let a lot of leads in the middle innings slip away in this ballpark this year. 3-0 pitch. They'll be happy to have a middle inning lead today after the Rockies banged their way to 3 in the first.
Pagnozzi, 3 knee injuries over the last 3 years, and it has slowed him down.
3-1. He hits it hard and fair down the left field line. Gaetti makes the turn, heading for third. Tommy Reynolds will hold him there with 2 outs as Pagnozzi doubles. And that's where the new little configuration of the stands down there comes into play. That ball could have kicked well out in front of Ellis Burks. It just nicked the corner of the seats, and Burks was able to go down into the corner to dig it out.
Ellis Burks is limping. He's had some tightness in the hamstring because he played on a wet field in Denver all weekend and a couple of times slipped and aggravated it. He doesn't quite know whether this ball is going to hit the point or not. It just nicks it, and then Ellis, you see him slipping there. That hamstring grabbed at him a bit, but by playing the carom correctly, he was able to hold the runner at third, and Ritz got behind 3-1, and that makes 300 hitters like Pagnozzi 500 hitters.
Here's Luis Alicea. He's coming off a 308 road trip. The Astros couldn't get this guy out last week in 3 ball games in Houston, where some guys can't see the ball. He was 7 out of 11. That was a breaking ball that nearly hit him. Of course, he came over from Boston, and he was expendable by the Red Sox when they picked up Will Cordero, who, of course, is now injured and out. The Cardinals really had hoped that Mike Gallego would be their everyday second baseman, but he's going to be out the whole year. There's a bouncer. Galarraga's got it. Good play to the pitcher. And that ends the St. Louis second. The big cat pounced, and the Cards strand a couple. We go to the third in St. Louis. 3-0 Rockies. Rockies into the third, leading the Cardinals 3-0. Good hitting and some pretty good defense there, Dave Campbell, to end that second inning.
Now, the big cat, Andres Galarraga, may lead the National League in errors, but he also may have the most range and the most accurate arm. That's such a tough play for a first baseman, but he leads the pitcher so perfectly with an off-balance throw. And that was a big out for Ritz and the Rockies. It saved 2 runs.
Top of the order for the Rockies in the top of the third. It'll be Young, Burks, and Bichette. Eric Young's bloop single to right field got the Rockies started. Burks hit a towering home run right after that. And Stottlemyre's ahead of him. Last year, these teams met 12 times. They split the 6 here. St. Louis won 4 out of 6 at Coors Field, so it was 7-5 Cardinals But the Rockies, as mentioned, are off to the first 3 successfully here in '96.
Eric jabbering away to Pagnazzi about something.
Well, that's 2 chatterboxes in the box then. Pagnazzi's been known to talk a pretty good game back there as well.
Pagnazzi from the Yogi school, huh? Just anything to try to distract the hitters.
He makes a little more sense than Yogi, though. Here's the 2-1 pitch. Reaching, Young's got a base hit. Even had Royce Clayton reach that ball, there's no way he's going to throw out Eric Young.
Take a look at these home runs in the first inning. Ellis Burks hits one that Mark Sweeney goes back to the fence. It looks like Sweeney thinks he has it, and he didn't. And then Larry Walker, 2 hitters later, followed with one. The only chance for anyone to catch this one was going to be in the seats in right center field.
It's still 3-0. And here's Burks. 11 homers and 32 runs batted in now. He's on the verge of breaking into the top 10.
Well, we've been calling the Ellis Burks and Eric Young Express. They keep saying, guys, get on the train. We've been calling it the E-train in Colorado lately. They have a phenomenal on-base percentage in the last 11 games. 46 out of 96. That's right around 470 with 32 runs scored now.
And they got it all started on the first 6 games of their streak when they were actually over 500 for a while, Dave. They were on base 32 out of 59 plate appearances. Combined over 500 between the two of them.
Well, a lot's been made of the outfield switch with Burks and Walker and Bichette all changing positions. Not too much made out of the decision by Don Baylor to put Ellis Burks in the number 2 spot. And it certainly paid off offensively for the Rockies.
Pagnazzi up out of his crouch. And the count goes 2-0 as they thought Young might be doing some running. He has stolen 14 this year. Only Delano DeShields and Brian McRae have stolen more bases than Eric Young.
A lot of people think that the Rockies go home to Coors Field and do nothing but play 3-run homer ball. Last Monday, they started 10th in the National League in stolen bases. Coming into today's game a week later, they're 3rd. They ran a lot on the current homestand.
And Burks fooled by the breaking ball. Well, our fans watching up in New England know all about this guy. Back in the late 80s, it appeared that Ellis Burks would be the next great center fielder in this game. He could run, he could throw, hit for power. The Green Monster staring him in the face every time up.
Won a Gold Glove in 1990. And then injuries, shoulders, back, hamstrings, you name it. And then when he came over to Colorado in '94, he was the National League Player of the Month the first month of April. Then hurt a wrist that eventually had surgery on it, and he really has not recovered until this year.
Yeah, he was hitting .352 at the time of that injury with 12 homers, 23 RBIs, and that sprained left wrist knocked him out for 2.5 months. But he's healthy again this year. Running count here.
Still has occasional back spasms, still has occasional hamstrings. Don Baylor gives him a day here and there.
2-1, runner going, great jump. And fortunately for the Cardinals, a swing and a foul, because Eric Young had that one stolen on Todd Stottlemyre.
Stottlemyre does have the high leg kick. He'll slide step now and then, but on that one, he went with his normal leg kick, and Eric Young had a huge jump.
Now it's 2-2. Young edging his way off. Stottlemyre looks him back.
From an historical standpoint, Todd Stottlemyre and his dad Mel, number 2 on the all-time father-son win list with 251. Dizzy Trout and Steve at 258. So Todd needs 7 to catch those guys.
Runner going again. High fly ball right field corner. Brian Jordan over there. He's got the fair ball. And with Young coming back to first, he wheels and fires into second base, 1 out. The thing the Cardinals have liked about Brian Jordan, he hasn't let some of his hitting problems affect his defense. He plays right field the same way he played DB in the NFL. He's very aggressive, and he really stalks the baseball.
I saw him go head first into a fence out in Colorado, and the last time the Cardinals were out there, and he probably figured, I've been hit harder by running backs coming into the secondary. He just shook it off.
I do believe the fence got the worst of it.
I think so.
Here's Dante Bichette. And Stottlemyre misses up and away. Well, he's finally got some power going after that singular type attack he had early in the season. It took him a while to hit one out.
Dante had a bad first at bat against Stottlemyre, and sometimes against certain right-handers, that carries over for a ball game with Dante. Pretty good swing right there, but Todd turned him inside out with 3 sliders back in the first inning. A couple of guys in the National League, Darryl Kyle, who's pitching today down in Houston, and John Smoltz with Atlanta. Dante has a difficult time with those 2 guys. Not only does he have trouble that day, but they sometimes put him in a slump for about a week.
He is 5th in the league coming into today. Right now his batting average .339. At the start of the day, he was hitting .341. Mike Piazza, Tony Gwynn, Mark Grace, Mark Grudzielanek, all ahead of Bichette starting today. John Mabry right on his heels. He's gone 0 for 1. Like Dante. 1-1, runner going. Pitch is low. Pagnazzi's throw is short. And Alisea did a pretty good job of boxing that ball down to keep it from going into center field. Tom Pagnazzi's had some neck problems for the last week or so, and many of his throws have been coming up short in the air at second base.
Now, a pretty good chance that Eric Young may lead the National League in stolen bases this year. He's only 3 behind the leader now. And remember, he missed the first 20 games of the year with a broken hand. So he's 15 out of 19, and he's played 20 games less than the leader, Brian McRae.
Pagnazzi now 5 out of 16 caught stealing this year. Dante Bichette, fly ball. Ryan Jordan circling behind it. Young is tagging. Jordan does not have a great arm. He's got an accurate arm. And with 2 outs, Young goes to third base.
Bichette had a better at-bat that time. I think he just kind of decided that Stottlemyre was going to work him away. So at least he put it in play. And that's a pretty good sign, actually, for Dante after that first at-bat.
Now, what to do about Larry Walker?
Well, that's Tony La Russa's decision, but I think this breaking ball that Stottlemyre has, I'd be tempted to walk him in 4 and take your chances with Galarraga.
Pagnazzi has not gone into his crouch yet. He will now. Larry Walker, 12 homers, 39 runs batted in. With that home run, now he tries to bunt for a hit, and he does have very good speed, as Dave mentioned. Those 12 homers put him up in the top 10. A bunch of guys tied. The league's leading home run guys at the Memorial Day signpost, as Carl Ravitch called it earlier. Henry Rodriguez of the Expos. Lots of candy bars on the field every time he hits one. He's got 17, as does Barry Bonds. Bagwell and Sheffield with Sosa, 16 right behind them.
Carp, one thing you worry about, though, when you're trying to pitch around a guy, which I think Stottlemyre might be, you worry about that ball going to the backstop and giving somebody a free run.
Well, he's not shy about throwing the slider. 0-2 to Walker. You got to have a lot of confidence in your catcher, and the Cardinals have that in Tom Pagnazzi. This is a perfect illustration of what Stottlemyre is all about. If you get to him here, you got a chance to put him away. If you don't, you might regret it 3 or 4 innings later.
Well, I don't think Larry Walker is going to see a fat fastball with this at bat.
One and 2 the count. He sees a fastball away, and it just misses. What is this, slow pitch? 5-14 over a week and a half?
Well, Galarraga's not too far behind him in the on-deck circle, but right on right, Stottlemyre didn't like the sign from Pagnazzi, so I think Todd just regrouping out here. In this situation, Todd's a veteran pitcher. He knows that if he can make Walker go after his pitch, fine, but I think in the back of his mind, if Walker's disciplined to lay off, I don't think Todd cares if he walks him.
And that'll fill the count 3-2.
I mean, he's not throwing a strike to Walker yet. Larry swung at 2 sliders down and in the first 2 pitches.
Galarraga, who flied to center first time, is on deck. 3-2 pitch, and he would not go for the low, heartbreaking ball. And Stottlemyre walks his first man, 2 on, 2 out. Let's check in with Carl.
Hi, Bob. Back come the Pirates against Houston. Watch this play. Charlie Hayes would get underneath this offering from Rich. Put it up in a center field. Brian Hunter going back all the way near the track and then realizes, oops, it lands in front of him. King and Merced score. A 4-0 lead has been sliced in half. It is 4-2 in the top of the 5th inning.
All right, Carl. Well, the Astros have been an up-and-down team. The Cardinals swept 3 from them. They turn around and swept the Cubs over the weekend. And Tony La Russa will visit with Todd Stottlemyre.
It's also got his infielders in, and I think, I'm not sure, but I think what they might be discussing, the Rockies have tried to double steal a few times lately, and they've got a couple of merchants out there with Eric Young at third and Walker at first. And I think Tony just was talking to everybody about what they're going to do to try to defense this. Obviously, the big thing is they don't want Young to score. But I think that's what that conference was about. Cardinals have an advanced scout like the rest of clubs, and the Rockies have tried to double steal at times this year, and with Galarraga up against a tough right-hander, they may try to do it.
Galarraga lifted an easy fly ball to center his first time up. Stottlemyre throws him a heartbreaking ball, swung on and missed.
Stottlemyre, I don't know if he has that fake to third, back to first. That's a play that Dennis Eckersley has used at times. There it is. Yeah, and almost got him. Walker was almost caught. So again, that conference with La Russa, I'm sure, was all about the possibility of how the Cardinals are going to try to defense the double steal. You see Walker, he started to go, and he goes, whoops, I better get back here.
0-1 the count to Andres Galarraga. Runners at the corners with 2 down. And that one up a little higher and away. Ball 1. Stottlemyre a lot more composed on the mound than he was just a couple of years ago. He gave up 3 early. He would just about blow up at himself out there. He's matured as a person and as a pitcher. Here's a 1-1. That'll move Galarraga back a little bit. Ball 2. And, of course, the Cardinals have another brain in that dugout on Don Baylor's staff for 3 years, Ron Hasse.
But it was great byplay between the two of them last Saturday. Don Baylor kept holding off using John Vanderwall because I'm sure Hasse, after watching Vanderwall get 28 pinch hits last year, kept telling La Russa, don't let this guy beat you. And La Russa kept setting the bait for Baylor the entire game. He would bring in right-handed pitchers in the game while the Cardinals had the lead where Vanderwall could tie it. But Baylor kept thinking, no, if it gets down on the line, they're going to go to Eckersley. He saved Vanderwall at the end, then pinch hit him for Vinny Castilla, who had hit 32 home runs last year. And Vanderwall hit the second pitch into the seats and right for a 3-run game-winning homer. But Hasse kept telling La Russa all night, don't let Vanderwall beat you. Baylor got in a position where Vanderwall did beat him.
Galarraga just got the end of the bat on that one. Ron Hasse, of course, was also a catcher for Tony La Russa with the Oakland Athletics, along with Terry Steinbach.
Well, let's see. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 outs. Walker looking over at Ken Griffey. Let's see if Stottlemyre pulls that fake to third move out again, because Walker could be going here.
Well, you had that one snuffed out. So did Larry Walker.
This is Stottlemyre's 62nd pitch, and he's only in the 3rd inning, so not very efficient today. But you said he threw a lot of pitches the first 3 down in Houston.
He was over 140 in his complete game shutout at Florida. Runner going, hard shot right at Clayton, and he guns out Galarraga. The Rockies will strand their first runners of the game, and after 2.5, it's still 3-0. Well, holiday in St. Louis, great baseball town. Cardinal fans have not seen their ball club in 2 weeks. 6-6 on a just completed bizarre road trip to Florida, Colorado, Houston, and Florida. Yeah, they went to the same place on the same trip. Cardinals were supposed to go to Joe Robbie Stadium in August, but the Dolphins are going to be playing an exhibition game there. So the Cards and the Marlins flip-flopped a couple of weekends, and the Cardinals ended up in the same city twice on the same trip. Stottlemyre, pretty good stick this year, 4 for 19, but Ritz will take care of him with a good defensive play. 1 out.
Well, that area in front of home plate slowed that ball down Stottlemyre hit. Mike Swanson, the Rockies PR guy, came in and made a pretty good point. He said, do you think if the Cardinals still had Vince Coleman, Ozzie Smith, and Willie McGee as the first three hitters, that they'd have that wet in front of home plate? Those guys used to hit those high choppers and run like the Dickens.
Well, if the rain was pouring earlier, they'd be pouring concrete down there so those choppers would get into the outfield. And that's what the turf used to be like here.
Remember, the San Francisco Giants groundskeeper in 1962 got voted a full share by their ball club because he made a moat down at first base
for Maury Wills.
For Maury Wills and Willie Davis in the playoffs in 1962. Dodgers went crazy when they saw the field. They just totally drenched it.
Mark Sweeney grounded out to second first time up. Well, he knows his days are numbered as a starter and as a leadoff man. Ron Gant will be off the DL in a couple of days. Gant still having a little twinge or two, though, in that hamstring. This will be a more powerful lineup when the Cardinals get that big fella back.
Well, obviously, the Cardinals smarting a little bit because Bernard Gilkey, who was their left fielder last year, has knocked in 44 runs. But they also know what Gant can do if he gets in there and gets hot with the bat.
Gallego for the season. Danny Jackson could be back in July. That's a big hop. Galarraga took care of it to Kevin Ritz. Lots of grounders here so far, and lots of highlights from Carl Ravitch.
Bob, and lots of fly balls in this one. Astros Pirates. Greg Biggio a triple in the first, then later a double, and boom! Off Zane Smith, a home run. You're all familiar with the cycle that Mabry hit less than 10 days ago. Is Biggio on his way? It's 5-2 in the bottom of the fifth.
Bob, just about everybody in that Central Division has been very streaky in the early going except the Astros, and maybe they're getting ready to put together one now. They won 3 in a row over the weekend and on their way today.
Well, when the Cardinals went to Houston last week, Biggio was hitting .247. He didn't do a whole lot in that series, and the Astros need his bat to wake up.
Cincinnati's lost 9 in a row, 7 in a row, won 7 in a row, and then had a 3-game winning streak.
This is Royce Clayton with a well-hit ball. It will leave the ballpark. St. Louis gets on the board. It's Royce Clayton's second of the year, 41st for the Cards. And it's a 3-1 ball game. He went down and got one and rifled that ball about 365 feet to left field.
Well, we thought the ball Ellis Burks hit in the first inning got a little extra boost. Carry. It appeared Clayton's did too. That ball appeared to go down and almost hit with one hand.
Well, it's warming up in St. Louis, and when it does, the ball carries better here in this spacious ballpark.
Watch Clayton go down and get this breaking ball. And one hand actually did come off right at the point of impact.
The thing about Busch Stadium is, though, there are no cheap home runs here. It's 330 down the lines, and if you don't hit one right down the line, it won't go because the wall curves out. 372 in the left center gap, 375 right center, 402 straight away. When they built this ballpark in 1966, it was 386 to the gaps and 414 to dead center.
I was with the Cardinals in 1973 and used to get extremely frustrated hitting balls at that 386 sign. I thought I had the ball out of the ballpark, and the outfielder would go back on the warning track and tap his glove twice.
Bob Gibson didn't mind it.
No.
It was in this ballpark, pitching half of his games in '68, that Gibson registered the all-time ERA stat of 1.12 over a full season. Now they're talking about raising the mound again. Brian Jordan goes to short. Weiss on the backhand, plenty of time. But with 2 outs, a solo shot by Royce Clayton, his second of the year, gets a run back, and the Rockies lead 3-1 after 3 here in St. Louis. Busch Stadium celebrating its 30th birthday this year. And Clayton makes it a 3-1 game. Vinny Castilla leads off for the Rockies. And Stottlemyre misses low and away, ball 1. And the fastball inside. Castilla, 5 homers, 26 RBI, so he's hanging in there. What's the take on him out west, Dave Campbell? Are people saying that there's no way he can equal what he did, or do they think he can do that? I mean, he had a huge year last year.
Well, he really did, and he's a pretty solid hitter. He's the Rockies' best inside hitter, and he just hadn't hit the home runs with the frequency, but Don Baylor thought his bat's been a little slow the last week or so. He gave him a half game off, but he hits them in clusters. He had 6 multi-homer games last year. He's only done that once this year.
High, hard one. Stottlemyre slips it by him, 2-2. All in all, still a pretty good bat to have down in that number 6 hole. Castilla with 26 runs batted in. Jeff Reed in the number 7 spot is flirting with 20 RBIs now. And you always know what you'll get out of Walt Weiss. Here's the 2-2. Heartbreaking ball, and Vinny was reaching to foul it. Over to Gene Glynn, the third base coach.
You know, the Rockies, after a fairly slow start offensively with that 9-game homestand, really got on fire. They're second only to the Montreal Expos in runs scored. Lead the National League in hitting, on-base percentage, and slugging percentage. But on the debit side, their pitching staff is last in the National League in ERA.
3-2. The only earned run average in baseball higher than the Rockies. And unless you've been asleep for the last month, you'll know the answer to this. Another Dave Campbell former ball club, the Tigers, at 7.13.
And we mentioned one thing in common. Both those teams lead their respective leagues in walks as well.
Stottlemyre with his 5th strikeout of the day as Castilla is gone, starting off the 4th. Well, the NHL is on the verge of a couple of series being wrapped up. The Avalanche of Colorado at Detroit leading 3-1, 7:30 tonight, 4:30 on the coast. And that'll set the stage for a big game tomorrow night as well. As another upstart team, Florida has a chance to take care of those Penguins, but lots of things happening in the Denver area right now, with the Rockies coming off a homestand successfully, and the Avalanche possibly in a position to put away those Wings.
Yeah, for you fans in Denver, that's 5:30 Mountain Time. We do Eastern and Pacific. I think most of the fans in Colorado are aware of what time that game starts tonight. Seems though the Colorado teams have been playing the red clubs lately. Cincinnati Reds, St. Louis Cardinals with their red and white, and the Avalanche, the Red Wings.
1 ball, 1 strike to Jeff Reed, who fanned his first time up. There's a breaking ball hit out to right center. Brian Jordan is after it. That ball carried about 360 feet out there. And Jordan puts it away. And now Stottlemyre has retired 5 of the last 6 with the Walker walk in between. A not intentional walk, as Dave noted. Now the bases are empty. And here's the situation you talked about last time, Dave. Pitcher due up next. You like to extend the inning if you can. And into the batter's box, one of the best in baseball at doing just that.
One of the reasons the Rockies' offense was so good last year was with Weiss getting these 2-out shots and getting on base, getting the pitcher out of the way, and then being able to start with Eric Young. Doesn't seem like a big part of the game, but it could be if Weiss can get on base and get the weak-hitting Ritz out of the way so you can start the 5th inning with Eric Young.
Walt Weiss, 98 walks last year. The only man who strode to first more was Barry Bonds. He won't get the job done this time. Alicea throws him out, and Stottlemyre now is pitching much better than he was earlier. 3-1 Rocks.
Astros and Pirates, strange circumstances as Pittsburgh attempts to come back. Garcia down a line in right. This is good for a double. Tingery would then score on the play. Garcia ends up on second. Following a King strikeout, the Pirates begin to run. First pitch, and Randy Noah comes up throwing. And they end the inning by trying to steal third. Not a brilliant play. Back to the ballpark.
All right, Carl, lots of things happening there. We saw the 3-for-3 by Biggio.
Well, Randy Noah coming over from Toronto as he took Jerry Goff's place. Goff came on and unfortunately had those 6 passed balls in one game.
And Tony Eusebio had a cyst removed off his wrist. He's the other Houston catcher. And he will be coming off the DL in the next week. Here's Ray Lankford. Led off the bottom of the 2nd, striking out. Ritz ahead of him here in the 4th. A little tapper. Easy for the pitcher. And Lankford goes quietly a couple of times. Well, coming up on ESPN Wednesday Night Baseball, Hideo Nomo scheduled to go for the Dodgers as they play the first half of our double dip. And Philly, Pete Incaviglia made the roster as a non-roster guy in the spring. And how about that Dodger pitching staff, Dave Campbell, with Hideo Nomo, as we check out the Yankees and Angels in the nightcap?
Well, Nomo comes in fourth in the National League in strikeouts. He has 6 wins. Not quite the numbers he had a year ago, but still can be plenty tough.
Kurt Schilling scheduled for the Phillies. Great pitching matchup, really in both ends of that doubleheader.
Schilling has pitched great since coming off the DL after the shoulder surgery. He's had 3 very solid starts.
Here's Gary Gaetti, and the last night's torrential rains in St. Louis reminded me of what happened to Gary about a month ago. They had a big storm. You might remember the Braves and the Cardinals were rained out here for ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. Gaetti's renting a house here in the St. Louis area. He was doing a little work on a drain and trying to get water to get out of his basement. He picked up an iron grate, dropped it on his toe, broke it, and went on the DL for a couple of weeks, and he was 10 for 25 over 7 ball games when he was hurt. So after a slow start, he had just gotten his bat going, had homered in the Cardinals' home opener in his first St. Louis at bat. And of course, Gary is from Centralia, Illinois. He grew up a Cardinal fan.
I think the Gold Glove voters would hold that against him, that he dropped a grate on his foot. I mean, he's won 4 Gold Gloves, but showed the bad hands there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. He must have felt like he was at the hot corner when that thing fell on him. Here's a 2-2. Breaking ball. Gaetti was reaching for it. High in the air to left center. Ellis Burks holds off Walker. 2 down.
Bob, one thing, the Rockies, I mean, obviously they're up against a tough guy in Todd Stottlemyre, but they also know that they can't sit on this 3-run lead. They talked about the lesson they might have learned down in Atlanta when they were ahead of the Braves 5-2 with 2 out in the 9th, and the Braves came back and beat them. And then if they didn't remember that, last Friday night against the Cincinnati Reds, they had a 5-1 lead in the 9th inning, and the Reds beat them 7-5. So they know they've got to keep plugging, but Stottlemyre has been stingy.
John Mabry hacks one up the middle. It'll be easy for Walt Weiss. And the 4th inning will be easy for Kevin Ritz and the Rockies. They lead 3-1 after 4. Pitcher will lead off when we come back to St. Louis. On to the 5th inning. The Rockies lead the Cardinals by a 3-1 score. And the Cards are retiring a couple of numbers this year. One has already been retired just a couple of weeks ago. The number 2 worn by the Hall of Famer Red Schoendienst. We will add the number 9 of Enos Slaughter onto that list in September. And Red Schoendienst is here with us, longtime Cardinal manager coach. And Red, congratulations on that great honor.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great day. You know, it was nervous for me. Like I said, you know, I stood up at the home plate. I'd rather had a bat in my hand than a microphone.
Red, they're going to honor that 46 club, won the World Championship in 46, 50 years ago. What are your memories?
Well, the memories there, you know, we played a great ball club, the Boston Red Sox, with Ted Williams, of course, and DiMaggio and Pesky and so many, Dorr. And we had a great series. It was 7 games, and I remember the one game we played, I think we scored 20 runs or 21 runs. The only 2 guys that didn't get a hit in that game was Musial and myself.
Why do you always remember those games? That always seems to stick out, the failures maybe more than the successes.
Well, most of the time it does, but it was a great series, and of course they're retiring Eno's number, you know, and he was here the other day for me, and Eno was a great ball player for the Cardinals, I mean, later on for the Yankees, and I'm glad to see him honor Eno along with the rest of them.
You know, in baseball lore, that's still one of the plays that are talked about, that run he scored from first base on the long single in the 7th game of the World Series. What's your recollection of that play? It's been debated so many times.
Well, he was running on the play, and really nobody helped Pesky, who had his back to the infield, and Eno kept running, and you know we had Gonzalez, third base coach, and very good coach, and when Eno got close to third base, he thought Gonzalez was saying go, go, go. He was saying no, no, no.
and because of that, probably because of that, you guys are going to celebrate that World Championship this year.
That's right.
Hey, Red, thanks so much for the visit. Congratulations on your wonderful honor.
I just have one more question. You manage a lot of great players. Am I the greatest player you ever managed?
Okay.
I played for Red in '73. I got no hits in about 15 at-bats here in St. Louis. Great seeing you, Red.
Thank you.
He told me that you're tied for #1 with the best broadcaster he's ever managed, and Mike Shannon's the other.
I wore Shannon's number. He still won't talk to me. He said I disgraced it here.
No balls and a strike, and that breaking ball is down low. You know, it's amazing. In 1971, I believe it was, the Cardinals had a 25th reunion with the Red Sox here. They put Harry Walker at home plate, Enos Slaughter on first base, Johnny Pesky at shortstop. They reenacted that play almost to perfection, and the crowd here on Old Timers Day went crazy watching that.
A lot of people forget that Dominic DiMaggio, the center fielder for Boston, was out of the game. He had pulled a thigh muscle, and I'm not sure, was it Columbine that was the outfielder? I'm not sure who it was, Roy Columbine perhaps, but it was not Dominic DiMaggio. A lot of people think it was.
2 balls and 2 strikes, Eric Young. After the strikeout of the opposing pitcher, Kevin Ritz. Well, Red Shane Deanson, Cardinal baseball tradition. Those are things they'll have in Colorado in the decades to come as they build a winning tradition out there. They already are well on their way to that. But I think we have to look back to realize where we are in this game as well. Langford stalking this fly ball to the gap, and he's got it. And finally, Todd Stottlemyre retires Eric Young, 2 outs.
Well, Todd's pitch count in the 5th inning is rather high, but he is a bull. You know, Bob Carpenter mentioned he threw 140 pitches in his start where he struck out 13.
And the recent trend is his way. He's now retired 13 of the last 15 Colorado batters since Walker's homer with 1 out in the 1st. Here's Ellis Burks, who hit the 2-run shot 1 out earlier.
Well, if the Cardinals wet down that infield in front of home plate for any particular reason, it's helped the Rockies a lot more than it's helped the Cardinals. Kevin Ritz has 9 ground ball outs out of 12.
There's a grounder over to Gaetti. He's a former Gold Glover. And the Rockies go quietly in the top of the 5th inning. Stottlemyre is on a roll. Halfway through the game, bottom of the order coming up for the Cards. 3-1 Colorado. Bottom of the 5th inning. Cardinals got a run last inning on the Clayton homer, actually in the 3rd. Mark Sweeney waiting his chance if somebody can get this inning going. It'll be Pagnazzi, Alicea, and Stottlemyre for St. Louis. Tom Pagnazzi with his 2nd inning double is now batting .310. 7 for his last 23. .310 is the number he hit on the just completed 2-week 12-game road trip. And the Cardinals really are the road birds now. They're home for 6 against these Rockies and 3 against Houston. 3-3. Then they go to the West Coast for a week and a half. So over a 4.5-week period, they're gone for 3.5 weeks of it. Pagnazzi got jammed, and Walt Weiss will catch it. And that's 5 in a row for Kevin Ritz since the Clayton home run.
Well, again, Ritz coming off a strong outing against Pittsburgh and putting back-to-back good outings together. That's something the Rockies, they've had Mark Thompson pitch some very strong games, but there's also a number of games he hadn't gotten out of the 2nd inning. Their most consistent pitcher has been Armando Reynoso, who 9 times in a row has gone at least into the 6th inning.
Alicea with a high fly ball in the first pitch. It's carrying to the track, and Dante Bichette has it for the 2nd out. Alicea will muscle up on occasion, making a bid for his 2nd home run. And it'll be Todd Stottlemyre with 2 outs and the bases empty. Well, Ritz much more economical in his pitches today than Todd Stottlemyre. He'll throw less than Stottlemyre because Todd is a strikeout pitcher.
Well, Ritz many times through 5 innings has been 100, 105, and that's one thing that pitching coach Frank Funk and Don Baylor have really been harping on him to throw strike 1. 11 out of 17 strike 1s today. 11 out of 18 strike 1s.
Stottlemyre likes to hack. 4 for 20 this year. Tony La Russa has really spent a lot of time in his first National League season with his pitchers in the batting cage. Much more so than your average National League manager.
Well, the Cardinals lost their best hitting pitcher, Alan Watson. He was in that trade that went over to San Francisco for Royce Clayton.
The 2-1 pitch to Stottlemyre, and the sinker misses. Stottlemyre's the kind of guy, if he's behind the ball game, he wants to get on base and make something happen.
Well, we mentioned that Kevin Ritz was amongst the leaders in base on balls. No walks so far, but in danger here.
And he misses down low. That's got to be a lack of concentration when you fail to go after the other pitcher. Coming into this game, 30 strikeouts, 37 walks by the right-hander of the Rockies. 2 Ks and that walk today.
Well, just got to go back and get it together right now. You got to get yourself mentally geared up, try to put it behind you, and see if you can get Sweeney out.
Sweeney's hit the ball on the ground twice.
Sweeney has a little bit of a Colorado connection. He was traded last year for John Habian. At that time, Habian went to the Angels, and now he is with the Rockies.
And this guy is a run producer. Last year for Vancouver, before the trade, he had 345 and had 59 RBIs in 69 games. At the Cardinals AAA Louisville, he had 368 with 22 ribbies in 22 games. And then with the Cardinals in 37 games, he had some good pinch hits and drove in 13 runs. So you put his numbers together, he drove in 94 runs last year. Up and away with the fastball.
Well, not only does Ritz want to put that walk behind him, but he wants to get Sweeney to keep that pitch count low. This is sometimes where the wheels have come off. When Ritz makes a mistake, he gets a little down on himself and then has a long inning.
1-1 pitch, breaking ball. He had Sweeney taking a hand off the bat, trying to reach that one.
Ritz has an excellent fastball. He throws a cross-seamer and a sinker. He's got a terrific curveball that he throws right here. This ball really going down, and he has an excellent changeup. It's just a matter of when he puts it together on certain days, he has terrific stuff. Inconsistency.
He's 1 pitch away from being out of the inning. Stottlemyre at first with 2 down, 1-2 the count, and a fastball right off Sweeney's belt.
Good idea. After you've shown the off-speed pitches, bust them inside. You've slowed their bats down, but you got to get it closer to the plate, at least make them think about swinging. Sweeney was worried about self-preservation. So you pound it in, try to speed up the bat. Now see if they try to slow it down with an off-speed.
Misses inside with a fastball, and at second base, out is Stottlemyre. Running on a 2-2 pitch with 2 outs. Big guys coming up. Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, and the Big Cat. 5th inning in the books, and now we go to the top of the 6th here at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. ESPN Major League Baseball. First half of our Memorial Day doubleheader. Bob Carpenter with Dave Campbell. And it'll be Bichette, Walker, and Galarraga, the 3, 4, 5 batters in the Colorado 6th. And I guess, Dave, we would be remiss in not adding Tim McCarver to the list of broadcasters whom Red Schoendienst managed along with Dave Campbell and Mike Shannon.
Yeah, I think there's a few more. You think about Al Rabosky.
Well, Euchre was on the 64 Cardinal team. Better known for going into the left field bleachers before game 1 and blowing someone's tuba as opposed to getting any playing time in that series. Bichette 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a fly ball. Stottlemyre works 1-1.
Dante saw Todd a bit in the American League. He's 1 for 13 lifetime. The 3 guys who saw Stottlemyre in the American League, Burks, Bichette, and Weiss. Ellis hit his 2nd home run off Todd today. Bichette has really made himself a good hitter. The last couple of years, been very intelligent, getting 2 strikes. With Stottlemyre, that may be a horse of a different course. I think Todd's got him kind of thinking crooked here.
1-2. And the breaking ball low and away. Dave, what about that play at second base at the end of the 5th inning? Did the Cardinals bail out Kevin Ritz there?
I think so. Kind of a surprise. I don't know if the sign was on, whether because Galarraga wasn't holding Stottlemyre, Todd thought he could make it or whatever, but it helped Ritz out.
And Bichette can't stop his swing. He's down on strikes for the 2nd time. And that's 7 for Todd Stottlemyre now. 40 strikeouts his last 4 starts.
Now, we mentioned 2 guys that Dante really has a lot of trouble with, and the one common thread, Darryl Kyle and John Smoltz, is they have great breaking balls, and you can add Stottlemyre to that list. If you've got a great breaking ball, you can give Dante Bichette some problems. If you got a mediocre breaking ball, he'll hit it a long ways.
Larry Walker hit one a long way, about 390 or so into the right center field bleachers back in the first inning. And he walked in the third with 2 outs. As Stottlemyre pitched around him to get to Galarraga, who grounded out to short.
National League record last week, 6 consecutive extra base hits.
And a 2-hopper to Royce Clayton. A quick release and 2 down. That is 16 of the last 18 by Todd Stottlemyre, including the last 9 straight.
Only tough out he had to get from the first inning on was back in the third inning. First and third, he had Galarraga, who's approaching the plate now, and Galarraga bounced out to short.
Fly ball to center in the first, that bouncer in the third. And Todd comes up and in on the first pitch.
But the only advantage you can say to Stottlemyre getting thrown out is you have the top of the order coming on for the Cardinals in the 6th. But Ritz had just gone 3-2 on Sweeney and was struggling a bit.
Tale of 2 different games for Todd Stottlemyre. First inning, he gives up 2 dingers. Since then, nada.
Well, the hits, one was a bloop single. The home run by Burks just barely got over. Walker's was legitimate, the home run into the pavilion in right center.
There's the 1-1 pitch. He keeps the fastball down and misses with it. Ball 2. Here's the 2-1. And a pop-up. Luis Alicea out into short right field. He holds off Brian Jordan. The Rockies are gone in the 6th. And Stottlemyre's retired 10 straight. Sweeney was at the plate when Stottlemyre was thrown out. And Mark will lead off. 3-1 Rockies. All clubs that have not been associated with pitching duels collectively too much during the season. But we've got a dandy going as Ritz and Stottlemyre battle through 5 1/2. It'll be the top of the St. Louis order in the bottom of the 6th inning.
Rockies are ahead by 2 on the scoreboard, but the way Stottlemyre is pitching, I think Ritz knows in the back of his mind that he can't really afford to give up much because Stottlemyre is really shutting down the Rockies' offense.
Sweeney on an off-speed breaking ball. Mark was at the plate. Took a 3-2 pitch, actually a 2-2 pitch that became 3-2. But on that pitch, Stottlemyre was trying to steal, and Jeff Reed gunned him out. It'll be Sweeney, Clayton, and Jordan for the Cardinals in the 6th. There's a fastball. Sweeney likes to take the fastball from the right-hander to left field. Loves hitting at Joe Robbie Stadium, where the Marlins have that Fenway-type scoreboard out there. It's only 361 to the gap in left center. Terry Pendleton has hit more than half of his career homers for the Marlins to that part of that stadium. And Sweeney found it to his liking on the road trip. Now he turns on an inside breaking ball and fouls it right side.
We were talking about what they've done to dress up Busch Stadium, making it a little more baseball friendly and cozy with some nooks and crannies. They've done a good job down at Joe Robbie Stadium, too. Basically a football stadium turned into a baseball stadium, but they've made it very interesting.
Cardinals watched a monsoon blow in there yesterday. Sweeney had just blooped a base hit in the 8th inning. The Cardinals were down 8-2. The rains came and never did stop. And the Cards, after Tom Hallion called the game an hour and 15 minutes later, boarded their flight and headed home to take on the Rockies, who were also washed out yesterday. 1-2 pitch.
It rained all weekend in Denver. They were lucky to get 3 ball games in. It rained Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Well, I guess that doused some of the fires out there, huh?
Yeah, that's the good thing. It was definitely dry, a lot of fire danger in Colorado.
Cardinals were out there last weekend. There was smoke all over the place, most of it from the bats of the Rocks, though. And Sweeney takes a fastball to the outside corner. Terry Tata punches him out, and it's the 3rd strikeout of the day for Kevin Ritz.
I think Sweeney may have been a little surprised by the pitch selection. Ritz had pounded him with fastballs, and then he goes away with a sinker. I think maybe Sweeney was waiting for something off speed. Ritz has had the good sinker ball going today, a number of ground ball outs, 9 out of the first 12.
Here's Royce Clayton, 1 for 2 with a homer. And that's a strike. You know, one of the things George Hendrick preaches to Cardinal batters is hit the fastball. And yes, folks, that is George under the Cardinal cap. There he is. He was a pretty good hacker in his time. But George likes to see his guys hit fastballs during their at-bats, not take them.
Well, George always was a little shy with the media. Still turned his head away from us.
I never heard George say a word until he became a Cardinal coach. It's been a revelation after all these years to hear the voice of George Hendrick. 0-2 pitch. Clayton up the middle. Ritz has the comebacker. That's the third one he's grabbed today, and he continues to throw a lot of ground balls. 2 outs here in the 6th inning.
Well, Ritz is throwing 15 out of 21 first pitch strikes, and that's been a huge key for him.
4-4 on the year. That ERA is tumbling. It came in 6.59. Ryan Jordan's the batter. He's pulled the ball twice on grounders right to Walt Weiss. A man of immense power, great speed, still trying to learn how to hit major league pitching. He's got a base hit there. Well, he's gone that way 3 times. He finally got out ahead of one. We've got a doubleheader for you today on ESPN. The Red Sox are on the West Coast to take on Oakland. The Knucklers of Tim Wakefield against the power of McGuire. Steve Wojciechowski is 5-0. He'll take on Mo Vaughn and those Red Sox. Dwayne Stats and Joe Morgan to call it from the Alameda County Coliseum a little bit later. And, of course, Mo Vaughn hitting for distance yesterday right in the middle of that action. Albert Bell is the leader with 20. Albert Bell is the major league leader with 20. As we mentioned earlier, the leading National League home run hitters, Rodriguez and Bonds, each with 17.
I saw Wojciechowski pitch in New York on Wednesday, and he is the master of changing speeds. He beat the Yankees and pitched very well.
Here's Ray Langford. Ritz has made him look bad twice. Once on a strikeout in the dirt in the 2nd, and then a little 4-hopper to the pitcher in the 4th inning. But as we mentioned earlier, Ray Langford really has no pattern. What happens 1 or 2 at-bats means nothing for the next at-bat. He is a very streaky hitter. He couldn't work with a breaking ball, and Ritz has really thrown some great curveballs, Dave, to left-handed batters. I'm thinking of one that he threw back in the 2nd that struck out Langford, and then 1 out later, John Mabry.
Well, he's been on top of the count for the most part today, and that's helped him. He's had a sharp curve. He's spotted the sinker very well. He hasn't used the change very much, and that's an effective pitch, but evidently he doesn't feel like it's working for him today so far.
1 ball, 1 strike. Tying run is in the batter's box here in the 6th inning. Good speed at first. Fastball outside, ball 2. Ron Hasse on the bench with La Russa. That's Mike Morgan in the background, who's back off the DL, number 36. Charlie Finley brought him to the major leagues. Morgan as a teenager. And he pitched very well the other night in Florida. Got the Cards a win. And he really didn't pitch that badly in Colorado, his first game off the DL as well. You go to Coors Field, having a sinker is a great thing. I think if I was on any staff, I'd have to visit with somebody, Dave, and develop a sinker before I would decide to go out there and take the mound.
Well, Morgan is one of the foremost practitioners. You know, the Cardinals missed him, and he's come back, pitched a pretty good ball game out in Denver, which is a true test of any pitcher.
Morgan imparting some of his knowledge to young Alan Bennis. There's Andy. He's coming off a complete game the other night.
Shut out Fish, I believe, didn't he?
Yes, he did. There's a backdoor breaking ball that takes care of Langford. Saturday night in Florida, Andy Bennis threw a 4-hitter at the Marlins. Did not walk a batter, struck out 7 as he beat Pat Rep 5-0. It was Andy's 9th career shutout, his 16th career complete game. More importantly, his 2nd win of the year for the Cardinals. He's now 2-7. He had lost 7 straight. High and tight to Langford, 3-2, and now this will give Brian Jordan a chance to be running off first base. And Dave, 2nd straight inning, he's gone 3-2 with 2 outs with a runner at first base.
Pitch count starting to get up there for Ritz. Kevin's a guy who goes about 100, 105, and that's about the limit of his effectiveness.
No activity in the Rockies bullpen yet. Jordan is running. Swinging a foul down the left field side.
I don't know if that was a slider or supposed to be a curveball, but it was very flat. And Jeff Reed's out to talk to Ritz right now. I think Reed wanted the curveball, but I think Ritz kind of aimed a breaking ball over, and he's pretty fortunate that ball wasn't hit further. He's had the good downward rotation on his curveball today, but I don't think you want to throw a slider down and into Ray Langford. You might find it in the top deck here at Busch Stadium.
Not many have gone up there in 30 years. 3-2. Jordan will be running again. And the ball might have hit Langford. It was in the dirt, a breaking ball. And the Cardinals have runners at first and second, 2 outs for Gary Gaetti.
You know, Frank Funk, pitching coach, will make his first visit to Ritz. Kevin looked like he was just really going to guide that curveball instead of letting it go. So Funk takes the walk out.
We see some stirring under the left field overhang. Back there in the corridor where the Rockies bullpen is. Well, that's about as well as we can see in there.
Darren Holmes has the hat off, but that doesn't mean anything. He's talking to Paul Zavella, the bullpen coach.
After Frank Funk talks to Kevin Ritz. So the tying run is now on base. Gaetti is 1 for 2 today with a base hit to right field and a fly ball to left.
Ritz got a big out back in the 2nd inning with runners at 3rd and 2nd. He got Alisea to bounce out. This is his 2nd critical situation where he needs a big out.
Gaetti, 4 homers, 11 runs batted in. And he lays off that breaking ball.
Gaetti only 156 with Ducks in scoring position.
Normally one of those guys in his career who turns it up a notch when men are on base. 96 RBIs in Kansas City last year. Fastball in the gap in left center. 1 run will score. Langford heading for 3rd. He will be held with 2 outs. And it's a 3-2 game.
Well, Gaetti, a great fastball hitter. Ritz got behind 1-0. And a good play by Larry Walker. And I think probably the happiest guy in the ballpark that Langford stopped at 3rd was Jeff Reed, the catcher. Langford, a former running back in junior college. And I saw him hit Darren Dalton one time so hard that Dalton, I think, probably still feels it. Well, Walker goes over and flags this thing before it can get to the fence and gets it back into Weiss, and Tommy Reynolds has to hold up Langford. You can see in that shot, Ray didn't really have a chance.
Gaetti with his 12th RBI of the year. Tying runs at 3rd, lead run at 2nd. And Ritz will work off the windup here against John Mabry. He's retired him easily twice. Mabry, a comebacker. He's 0 for 3. The Cardinals will lead 2. They've stranded 4. And they chip away again. On to the final 3 innings. Now the Rockies lead is 3-2. RBI double in the 6th. And the Cardinals have 2 of the 3 back. The Rockies got in the first on the Burks and Walker homers. Todd Stottlemyre still battling. His next pitch will be number 100 as he goes into the 7th inning against Castilla, Reed, and Weiss, the Rockies' 6, 7, and 8 batters. Don Baylor went ahead and had Ritz pitch to Mabry with Pagnozzi at first base. Excuse me, in the on-deck circle and first base open. And Mabry on the first pitch, bouncing right back to the pitcher.
Well, Don Baylor took a calculated risk because Mabry has killed the Rockies. He got away with it. But left-handed batters today against Ritz are 0 for 11. He's had that curveball working very well to the lefties. And that's been his out pitch. And Mabry became the 11th left-handed batter to get down in succession.
2 balls and no strikes to Vinny Castilla. He's fanned twice, looking in the first, swinging to lead off the foot. 10 straight for Stottlemyre. He's retired 17 of the last 19.
Todd's due to hit third in the bottom of the 7th inning. It won't break the Rockies' heart any to see him go. They'd like to get a couple of runs here to make sure he's gone. Well, Baylor gave Castilla a green light on 3-0, and he got a pitch to hit out of here, but Stottlemyre just beat him. That'll get you muttering to yourself when you get a home run pitch and draw air.
Here's a 3-1. Pretty good pitch there. Fly ball, right field line. Brian Jordan, that's a fair ball. It'll be a ground rule double. Hits the track and spins into the seat. And Castilla gets a break as Stottlemyre had him reaching, and he just got it inside the line.
Well, he got more than one break on that bounce because Vinny was not running. Vinny was running about half speed down to first base, and had that ball not bounced and gone to the stands, that might have been a long single, and Don Baylor might have been on his case. Vinny Castilla is not running here. That ball hit and kicked up into the stands. Castilla wasn't even to first base yet.
Well, the Rockies need to convert this run, get their 2-run lead back. Jeff Reed 0 for 2 against Stottlemyre with a strikeout and a fly ball.
Reed's job, of course, is to pull the ball, get Castilla to third, and if that happens, then the Cardinals will have to worry about a squeeze possibility with Walt Weiss.
And also, David, the Rockies can score here in the 7th inning with Stottlemyre due to bat third in the 7th. They go a long way toward getting him out of this game for a pinch hitter. Corey Bailey warms up for St. Louis.
Well, first hit since the first for the Rockies. That wasn't a real lasher by any stretch of the imagination.
There's one. Alicea. Good base running play by Castilla to freeze at second base. We talked to Tony La Russa before the game today. Asked him if this is the Stottlemyre he saw in Oakland last year.
Yeah, this is getting pretty close to it. I think Todd has gotten to the point where he has a lot of ways to attack a hitter. I mean, he can use a fastball 3 or 4 different ways. He has a couple of different breaking balls. He's got a changeup he's using more and more. So you're seeing the Todd Stottlemyre that a hitter will see a different one almost every at-bat, and that's an effective way to pitch.
If you're a starter, it's the most effective way. Here's Walt Weiss. 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a ground ball.
John Vanderwall has moved out on deck to hit for Kevin Ritz.
Blown away from Stottlemyre. Earlier, Dave Campbell mentioned if the runner was at third, we could see a squeeze. Well, evidently, Gary Gaetti and the Cardinals think that there still might be a bunt for a base hit out there somewhere. Gaetti is close in at third, actually on the grass. And Weiss has a base hit to right field. Castilla around third. He'll be held. Brian Jordan right over the cutoff man. A good throw and on one hop to Pagnozzi. Mabry trying to decoy the runner there. And the Rockies have first and third and 1 out.
Well, Castilla is the slowest of the Rocky runners, and Gene Glenn took a long look. But because they don't play very deep on Walt Weiss in the outfield, Glenn had to hold him up. Now, this is a case where if they were going to let Kevin Ritz bat, then probably Glenn would have sent him. But Gene Glenn knew that John Vanderwall was going to pinch hit, and he just couldn't take a chance on Castilla, who does not have the good speed. That's one thing. Third base coaches, you know, they hardly ever get noticed unless they send a runner and he's thrown out. Gene Glenn has been almost an anonymous man in Colorado this year, and that's good because he has really made great decisions at third base coaching this year. Jordan throws the ball low enough for the cutoff. That keeps Weiss from going to second. And that throw was right on the money. Castillo would have been a gone goose. Well, Duncan out to talk to Stottlemyre about Vanderwall. John Vanderwall, the last time he saw the Cardinals, hit the 3-run homer off Dennis Eckersley to bring the Rockies back from a 4-run deficit in the bottom of the ninth.
Major League record 28 pinch hits last year for Vanderwall. This year as a pinch hitter, he's 6 for 21 with that homer against St. Louis and 5 RBIs. Those are his overall numbers. St. Louis infield back looking for the double play ball. Stottlemyre really not that much of a ground ball pitcher. He often is more likely to get the strikeout or the pop-up.
Amazing how Baylor uses Vanderwall in situations. Now the Rockies have a lead, but Tony La Russa did not have any left-handers up in the bullpen. And so he snuck Vanderwall in there before they could get Passes or Honeycutt up. So a good spot to use Vanderwall.
Fastball misses inside. 1 ball, 1 strike.
I mean, he is the one ace in the hole that Baylor has on the bench. The rest of the bench, not too strong batting. We have Jayhawk Owens, Pedro Cassiano, Quentin McCracken, and Jason Bates. More defensive specialists than anything else. But La Russa did not have a lefty up, so Baylor got Vanderwall in right here as he's trying to up that lead.
Well, I was wondering, Dave, if with this lineup he even needed a bench. I guess if you got Vanderwall, that's about all you need in there with the other 8 guys he has in there.
So he doesn't pinch hit for guys very often. You see Ritz's line as he's through for the day.
6 pretty good innings. Vanderwall fouling the breaking pitch, and he's behind 1 and 2.
Of course, the amazing thing about Baylor's move against Eckersley is Vanderwall pinch hit for Vinny Castilla, who you had mentioned hit 32 home runs last year. But Baylor had been waiting the entire day for the right spot to use Vanderwall, and that's when he used it.
And the Rocks went on to sweep the Cardinals out in Coors Field last weekend. Stottlemyre on 1 and 2. Another ground ball. This one's foul. Well, the sun's out now, and it'll now turn into one of those blazing, muggy, sticky St. Louis early summer afternoons. Big-time storms here overnight. The new field has acquitted itself well. And the Rockies with Castilla at third. He doubled leading off the inning. After Reed lined out, Walt Weiss bounced to base hit.
Huge spot in this ball game for Stottlemyre and the Rockies. Big out right here. He has made 3 quality pitches on Vanderwall. John's just been able to hit little numbers down the first base side. But Stottlemyre could be pitching for the ball game right here in this at-bat.
One and 2 the count. Outside target from Pagnozzi.
John Baylor might try a double steal at certain points, but more than likely, if he sent Weiss here and it was a ball to Vanderwall, chances are then La Russa would walk Vanderwall to load the bases, and he wants Vanderwall to have a swipe here at Stottlemyre.
One-two pitch. Got him on a high fastball. 8 strikeouts for Todd Stottlemyre. And now it'll be up to Eric Young with 2 down.
Terrific job by Stottlemyre. 3 breaking balls down and then pounded him up with a fastball that Vanderwall could not lay off. Now, once again, the Cardinals infield will convene. The chance of the double steal more prevalent now, so once again, they'll talk about what they want to do to defense it.
And, of course, with 2 outs, you get the guy at second. You don't have to worry about the other.
Well, with Stottlemyre's slow delivery, though, he's very prone to the steal. And one thing they don't have to worry about this time is Castilla's speed at third. Before, they had Eric Young at third base. Vinny does not run well.
Two on, 2 out. And a hard slider misses outside. Eric Young 2 for 3 today. With 2 singles, a run scored, and a stolen base, his 15th of the year. Eric Young has now scored 25 runs on the year in that leadoff spot. 1-0 pitch, and he was nowhere near that one.
This is kind of a game where on the scoreboard the Rockies are ahead. But you almost figure in some respects, because their offense has been totally stymied since the first inning, that they have to score at least one here to win this ball game. You really get that perception.
1-1 is the count. Stottlemyre gets the inside corner with a running fastball. This is the way this guy's been pitching for the last 3 weeks. He'll scuffle early, kick it into cruise control for the middle innings, and then he'll fight you face to face, toe to toe, to stick in the game. 1-2, base hit up the middle with the runner moving off first. Stopping at second is Weiss, and the Rockies pick up a huge run and lead it 4-2 as Eric Young drives home his 13th of the year.
If you watch the Rockies about as much as I have this year, covering them on a fairly regular basis, the biggest difference between them winning and losing has been whether they get the 2-out RBIs or the opponents do. And that 7-game losing streak when they went to Atlanta and Florida, Atlanta scored 17 consecutive runs with 2 outs in that series. Now the Rockies get a huge 2-out hit from Eric Young.
Here's Ellis Burks with 2 men on. Stottlemyre misses up and in.
.48% of all runs score with 2 outs.
He threw a fastball, and Ellis Burks was trying to jump all over it. And the count's even, a ball and a strike. 3 base hits in the inning, after Stottlemyre had retired 10 straight and 17 of 19 through 6.
Well, we'd love to tell you who's coming in for the Rockies, but we can't see the bullpen, folks.
I'm sure Tony La Russa has found a way in this ballpark to find out who's warming up down there.
Yeah.
I guess he has to maybe just call his own bullpen, and they can look in there.
Well, Stottlemyre got a huge out with Vanderwall, but then Eric Young, with a 1-2 count, reached out and got a breaking ball and lined it to center.
There's a pitch up high, and it's hit up high. Pagnozzi in foul ground. Shields the sun, and the Rockies are gone in the 7th, but they pick up a big run. On 3 base hits, they leave a couple. 7th inning stretch time, 4-2 Colorado. Fun for Colorado there, Dave Campbell, in the top of the 7th inning. Now they go to their bullpen, which last year was not a strength. This year it is.
Well, actually, just the opposite. Last year they were pretty good. This year they've been struggling a little bit. Steve Reed's coming out right now. He had a good outing in his last time out. He has better velocity on the ball, also had a pretty decent breaking ball. But the Rockies bullpen with Curtis Leskanic, Bruce Ruffin, Steve Reed, Mike Munoz, a lot of them have been struggling this year. It was really a big strength last year.
They are not alone in that category. And the Cardinals, in the bottom of the 7th inning, may have to make a move now with Stottlemyre down by a couple, as opposed to having him still in there battling in a 1-run ball game. Pagnozzi, Alicea, and the pitcher, the scheduled batters, in the bottom of the 7th inning.
So Reed, the Submariner, will come on. Last year, rated 3rd in the major leagues and most effective in mid-relief. Number 2 was a guy from the Cardinals by the name of Tony Fossis, and the number 1 guy was the guy who's a closer for the Angels right now, Troy Percival.
Pagnozzi 1 for 2 with a double. And the side armor gets him to pop it up out to right center. Dante Bichette, very quick out. First batter's retired, always a huge stat for any reliever. And Reed comes off the bullpen mound and gets Pagnozzi.
And in today's game for the Colorado Rockies, 7 innings, they have retired the leadoff batter all 7 times. You keep that leadoff man off, you can generally keep big innings away from him.
Alicea 0 for 2. And Reed's ahead of him. In the on-deck circle, Willie McGee waits for the Cardinals. He's been the perfect fourth outfielder for them this year, and he's had to start a lot with Ron Gant hurt. One and one to the Cardinals' number 8 hitter here in the 7th. Alicea lays off the breaking ball down and in.
Reed has come up with a changeup in the last 2 years to help work against left-handed batters.
Alicea jacks one down the line, foul. That's the coziest part of Busch Stadium, 330 down the line. It's an 8-foot wall down there, but he couldn't keep it fair.
Vinny Castilla, after that foul ball, just ducked in the dugout to get a quick pair of sunglasses as the sun has broken through here. Let's see if he goes to the change after pulling the fastball. He went to something off speed.
2 Cardinals in a row retired here in the bottom of the 7th. And you'll hear a big ovation as one of the favorite Cardinals in recent decades. Willie McGee steps up. Former National League batting champion, MVP, had some great World Series for the Cardinals in 82, 85, 87.
Still one of the toughest men to put a defensive chart together on in the major leagues.
Why bother? And if you get ahead of Willie McGee, you're nuts if you throw him a strike. He fouls one back.
Well, Todd Stottlemyre did his job today. He gave up a hit in the 7th, but after a rough first inning, he really kept his club in the ballgame. I know he was disappointed on that hit to Eric Young.
And we welcome all the folks who've been watching the Astros and the Pirates. Bob Carpenter and Dave Campbell, welcome to St. Louis. We're in the bottom of the 7th inning here. Kevin Ritz pitched 6 very good innings for the Rockies. Cardinals are right now hitting for Todd Stottlemyre, who gave up 4 runs, 7 hits in his 7th. It's Willie McGee with 2 outs and the bases empty. Rockies lead 4-2. 1-1 pitch from Steve Reed, and a curveball in on his hands, and Willie fouled it.
Can't pick on that Central Division anymore. Houston wins today. They get to 500. So you can't say that whole division is below the 500 mark. Astros have won their 4th in a row.
And that's after the Cardinals swept them last week, and that's after the Astros stranded 30-some runners in that 3-game series. 1 ball, 2 strikes. McGee on a fastball is gone. And Reed comes out of the bullpen and mows down St. Louis in the 7th inning. Cardinals will go to their bullpen in the 8th, down by a couple. Well, when the Cardinals were in Colorado and Mike Morgan came off the DL, Corey Bailey was sent to Louisville. He said, "I'll be back," and a week later he was, as the Cardinals put Eckersley on the DL, and Bailey activated in Florida, back with the club. And the hard-throwing right-hander makes his 20th appearance. He's 2-1. He was a guy in spring training who they did not think at the start would make the club. There was a hard-throwing right-hander, John Frascatore, that's been with the Cardinals a couple of times, and Bailey basically went out in the spring and won a job on this staff, and he'll pitch in relief of Todd Stottlemyre, who sits with Donovan Osborne.
Rockies had kind of the same situation, only it turned out to be a starter. Mark Thompson was struggling to make the staff in spring training, was the 12th pitcher to make it, and at times this year has been the most dominant Rocky starter. So just never know if a guy gets an opportunity. Sometimes they show well.
Top of the 8th, Dante Bichette, Larry Walker, Andres Galarraga for the Rockies. 3 in the 1st, and they lead the Cardinals 4-2 after 7. Corey Bailey, and a little bouncer to Mabry. Easy for John, who played most of his career as a right fielder. Mabry has the best throwing arm on the Cardinal club. Right now, because of their overload in the outfield, he's become a pretty good, solid first baseman. Larry Walker is next. Walker with a 1st inning homer, 3rd inning walk, and a 6th inning ground ball. The homer was his 12th, the RBI his 39th, and Mabry's going to get him too. Little help from the pitcher this time, 2 down. Well, a couple of bullpens that are looking pretty sharp right now.
Well, with the exception of Walker's home run in the first inning, Cardinals have done a pretty good job of shutting down that 3-4-5 contingent of the Rockies, the heart of their order. Bichette 0 for 4, Galarraga 0 for 3, and Walker now 0 for 2 since the homer.
Andres Galarraga with a fly ball to center. Grounder to short and a pop-up to second.
Galarraga is one of those guys, though, that can go 0 for 3, have bad swings, and you make one mistake over the middle of the plate, and he'll hit you about 430 straight away.
Had a good rip there and fouls it off to the right. Well, the Rockies hit a lot of people 400-plus last year. Of course, as a lot of baseball fans know, second team in big league history with 430 homer guys. The Big Cat with Bichette, Walker, and Castilla. That had not been done in 18 years. Backing up Gaetti. Backhand. Look what I've got. Rockies are gone in the 8th inning. And the Cardinals down by 2. Sweeney will lead off. Clayton, who's homered after him. And then the speed of Brian Jordan in a 2-run game. Later today, Ozzie Smith will carry the torch, the Olympic torch relay, as it makes its way into the St. Louis area. They'll head down a little bit south into the suburbs, down in the Festus Crystal City area, and join 13-year-old Zach McVeigh on the final leg here. It's not the first time Ozzie has been a part of the Olympic torch bearing effort. Coming up a little later on ESPN today, Boston at Oakland, 4 o'clock Eastern. Tim Wakefield for the Red Sox, Steve Wojciechowski for the A's. He's 5-0. Dave Campbell says he's for real. Wayne Stats and Joe Morgan will back it up a little bit later.
Yeah, put the radar guns away. It won't mean anything when Wakefield and Wojciechowski pitch.
Well, that's all right. Here's Sweeney. Cardinals leadoff man 0 for 3 today with a couple of ground balls and a strikeout.
Reed figures to go to the first 3 hitters in the inning. If anybody gets on, then the Rockies may go to a left-hander to face Langford, although we may not know it in that bullpen that we can't see.
Well, they got plenty of them. Don Baylor has 7 relief pitchers. Excuse me, 8, 4 righties, 4 lefties.
Yeah, Mike Farmer, who was scheduled to start yesterday before the rainouts, been added to the bullpen core. He's a left-hander.
1-1 pitch. Sweeney looking the other way. Rockies have out-hit the Cardinals 7-5 and lead 4-2. St. Louis with single runs in the 3rd on a Royce Clayton homer, and in the 6th on a Gary Gaetti double. And the Rockies picked up a big run on an Eric Young single in the top of the 7th.
Big key today for the Rockies pitching is they've held St. Louis's left-handed batters to an 0 for 13 so far, and they've had nothing but right-handers on the mound.
Sweeney on 1 and 2. Way outside.
That was the changeup from Reed, but he really didn't get it close.
Breaking ball pops him up. Waldweiss short left center. Well, this one is not holding true to form today. With the exception of a couple of swings, Burks a homer, Walker a homer, and Royce Clayton this home run with 2 outs back in the 3rd.
1-7 in a row, and then had a 3-game. Had a breaking ball that was in the middle of the plate. He kind of reached out, but he got enough to get it over that fence and left.
Royce Clayton with his 2nd of the year. Trying to bunt for a hit. Good play by the pitcher. He slips and out at first base as somehow Galarraga stayed on the bag.
Boy, brilliant play at both ends. Now you got to worry about a groin problem for Steve Reed as Don Baylor and Dave Schilotti, the trainer, come out, and how Galarraga ever stayed on the bag. He has great flexibility for a big man. Watch Reed's leg go as the field wet from the rains, and then watch the stretch by Galarraga, who just keeps his tiptoe on the base, and they're out looking at Reed right now. So a couple of fine plays there under adverse conditions.
It certainly looked like the first base umpire, Bill Hahn, got it right. And that's a big play in a 2-run game with some power hitters coming up. Now the Cardinals need another base runner to get that tying run to the plate, and they'll let Reed throw a few here.
I'll tell you, Steve has a lot of moxie, and unless he's really hurting, he will stay in. Don Baylor looking at him closely, and Reed's going to say, I'm fine. You have to kind of drag Steve Reed off. He came in the other day, pitched a solid 8th, and looked at Baylor and said, I want to finish. And Baylor said, you go sit down. I'm bringing in Ruffin to finish. I want you the next day. Next day it rained out, but he's ready today. And if he can get Jordan, he'll have given the Rockies 2 important innings in the 7th and 8th.
Brian Jordan 1 for 3 with a single and a run scored last time in that run-scoring 6th inning. How much differently, Dave, does Don Baylor manage on the road than he does at home?
I tell you, a lot of people say, Tony La Russa said, he may have the toughest job in baseball managing in Coors Field. It really is different out there. I mean, the other day there was a game there where Cincinnati was ahead 9-0, and they were daring the Reds to run, but Cincinnati, using good baseball etiquette, didn't. Next thing you knew, it was 9-7, and then maybe the Reds thought that maybe they should have run. It's tough. I mean, Baylor feels that his club, if they're still within 4 or 5 in the 6th inning, he thinks they still have a chance in Coors Field. And the tough thing about it is sometimes he'll use better relievers in that situation instead of bringing in a mop-up type guy. If they don't come back, then you've kind of blown off a couple of good relief pitches. But boy, it's tough.
1 ball, 2 strikes. And that's up and in.
Remember a game last year where the Dodgers were leading 14-4 in about the 6th inning, and Mike Piazza could hardly walk with a hamstring, and everybody kept waiting for Lasorda to take him out, and Tommy said, are you kidding me?
Here?
Next thing you knew, it was 14-11.
And Jordan with a fly ball. It'll play in center for Walker. And the Cardinals are gone in the 8th inning. 6 in a row in 2 innings by Steve Reed, who shakes off the injury and keeps his team on top by 2. Busch Stadium in St. Louis, colorful on a Memorial Day afternoon. 34,088 on hand as the sun breaks through. Castilla, Reed, and Weiss for the Rockies in the 9th inning. First half of our doubleheader a little bit later today. The Red Sox at Oakland with Wakefield and Wojciechowski on the mound. Wayne Stats and Joe Morgan are setting up shop in Oakland for that one.
Red Wings Avalanche tonight, 7:30 Eastern, 5:30 Mountain Time. A lot of fans out there.
That's Alicea up the middle just a bit to throw out Vinny Castilla, whose blue ground rule double led to that insurance run back in the 7th inning. 1 out in the 9th as Corey Bailey works his 2nd inning of relief for the Cardinals.
Out comes Tony La Russa with Jeff Reed coming on. He's got left-hander Tony Fossis in the bullpen, and that's who he wants.
So 4 straight for Corey Bailey. Made his return to the ball club over the weekend in Florida from AAA. And it'll be one of the most interesting characters in the National League. Tony Fossis, outstanding against left-handers last year. He takes over for Corey Bailey here in the 9th. All right, Carl, thank you very much. And Tony Fossis takes the mound for the Cardinals. Over the last 2 years, he's been one of the busiest relievers in the league. 23 appearances so far this year. And last year, for Joe Torre and Mike Jorgensen, he was just about as busy, mostly a situational pitcher that year.
Well, we mentioned he and Steve Reed finished 2 and 3 in the major leagues. That was, as far as mid-reliever effectiveness, and read a lot of detailed statistics we won't go into. But Tony Fossis, a week ago, came in this identical situation with Jeff Reed coming up. Tony La Russa wanted the left-hander, and that time the Rockies were behind. And Reed hit a home run into the seats off Fossis, but La Russa never blinked. He says, I'm going right back to my guy.
38 years of age, 58 appearances last year when his ERA was under a run and a half. Reed is 0 for 3. And Tony Fossis gets ahead with a fastball. If he gets ahead of you with that pitch, you'll start seeing some hooks.
Looking ahead to the Cardinal ninth, Langford, Gaetti, and Mabry, so they got some pop at least for the first two.
And the breaking ball is blown away. 1 ball, 1 strike. This is the first game of a 3-game series. The Cardinals have Houston coming in here later this week. And speaking of divisional play, the Cards have only played 9 divisional games in the Central so far, and the Rockies even less. In the West, they've only played 5. They're 1-1 against the Dodgers, 1-2 against the Padres. They have not seen the Giants yet.
Central Division, I really thought the Cubs were going to make a little better show. They've had problems with Jamie Navarro and Frank Castillo. That's really hurt them in this part of the season. They've only won 3 out of their 20 starts. Jim Bullinger's been pitching well lately. Telemaco, who just came up, looks like he's got good stuff, and Traxel's pitched well, but the number 1 and 2 guys, Navarro and Castillo, have struggled.
Here's a 2-2 pitch. Breaking ball is outside. St. Louis will not see the Cincinnati Reds until the 1st of July. 0-2 against the Cubs, 3-0 as we mentioned against Houston. They've split 4 with Pittsburgh. 3-2 pitch. Missed with the fastball. Fawcett could not get the curveball close. 1 on, 1 out. And as always, the College World Series is coming up on ESPN. And the Deuce will get it started later this week. Bama is in there. Haven't seen the Tide in a while. There are some of the usual suspects, such as the Gators, the Seminoles, the Bayou Bengals, the Hurricanes, the Cowboys of Oklahoma State, of course, the Shockers of Wichita. It all starts Friday, 4 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Mountain,
Thank you.
and 1 o'clock Pacific.
LSU scored 18 runs in an inning yesterday, a new NCAA record. It'd be a major league record, too.
There's a good-looking bunt from Walt Weiss. Gaetti, good play, out at first base. Good bunt, better play by the veteran Gaetti. Down to second base goes Jeff Reed.
Yeah, the big thing when you're going to barehand a play like Gaetti, you have to watch the ball right into your hand, and Gaetti did that very well. If you take your eye off it to look up, but Gaetti watched that ball right into the bare hand, then made the throw. And Weiss out by a step. Rockies will bring on Quentin McCracken to pinch hit. Situation here where McCracken, a switch hitter. Don Baylor figures if he would have brought up Pedro Castellano, a right-handed batter, a pretty decent hitter, then La Russa would have switched to the right-hander warming in the bullpen. So by sending up the switch hitter, Don doesn't lose a player that way. If La Russa wants to make a move, then McCracken goes right around and hits left-handed.
And no sacrifice given to Walt Weiss. He was bunting for a base hit.
Well, I agree with that scoring. It's just that too few official scorers call it that way. The rule says if in the mind of the official scorer you're bunting for a base hit, you don't get the sacrifice. But about 90% of the official scorers give them one anyway. They say, well, we can't read their mind. McCracken there, I kind of disagree with that play. He shortened up the bunt. You got 2 outs. You got to drive that man in from second base. Don't leave it up to the next guy.
2-0 pitch. And to short it goes. Clayton has to hurry. High throw. Mabry's got it, but safe at first, and it was only the reach of John Mabry, who stands 6'4", that kept that ball from going up against the barrier or into the seats and scoring Jeff Reed from third base.
Good play by John, because that saves a run. We'll watch La Russa now to see if he's going to make a change with a right-handed batting Eric Young. Sending Pagnazzi out as we look at the play. Pagnazzi walking out to the mound, you kind of figure he's out probably to stall, make sure the right-hander Jeff Parrott gets loose in the bullpen. Once again, I'm sure they're discussing, as their advanced scouting report has told them about the Rockies' propensity for double steals lately, and now they get the signal from the bullpen that Parrott's ready, and La Russa's on his way out to make the pitching change.
Jeff Parrott, a former Rocky, pitched for this ball club 3 years ago. 2 on, 2 out. Top of the 9th inning. Rockies up by a couple. They'll try for a little more insurance when we come back to St. Louis.
A note yesterday, Bob, on the Red Sox pitching going into yesterday's game, when Roger Clemens does not start, 9-12 with a 6.69 ERA. So the Red Sox need help from the rest of that pitching staff.
Jeff Parrott takes over for the Cardinals. 4th pitcher of the day for Tony La Russa. Now, the interesting thing about Parrott is he's one of the league leaders in wild pitches because he throws a splitter, and that's always a concern with a runner at third base. Jeff Reed is there with 2 outs. McCracken at first. They've now changed that error on Clayton to a McCracken infield base hit. And here's Parrott against Derek Young, who's 3 for 4 with a run, a steal, and an RBI. And there's a pitch in the dirt. Pagnozzi handles it cleanly.
Tom covers up the 5-hole like any good goalie tries to do.
Trying to keep it a 2-goal game into the bottom of the 9th. Cardinals have some big hitters coming up.
Avalanche and Red Wings, 5:30 Mountain.
You can't wait.
I'm watching.
Cardinals, of course, were in Florida over the weekend. Have never seen so many rats in one place. Those Panther fans are going nuts down there. You'll see them and the Penguins tomorrow night. 1 ball, 1 strike to Young. Jeff Parrott for the Rockies in 93 40 ball games. Won 3, lost 3. He's been an Expo, a Philly, a Brave, an Athletic, a Rocky, and a Cardinal.
Rockies did a nice thing. 93, Parrott tore his elbow, tore the ligament. Didn't really have any kind of an invite the next year. Even though the Rockies did not offer him a contract, they let him come to Tucson the next year to work back into shape and get some throwing down in Tucson, and they allowed him to do that, and that allowed Parrott to resurrect the career.
Well, the Royals took a good look at him in 94 when he pitched at Gulf Coast, Wilmington, and Omaha. Cardinals picked him up last year in 59 ball games, 77 innings, 71 strikeouts. 2 balls, 1 strike, and it's up and into Young.
You know, EY last time against Stottlemyre hit a low and away slider, so I think the Cardinals feel he's likes the ball out away from him. They've been trying to crowd him with fastballs in this at bat.
3-1. Runner going off first, no play. McCracken down to second.
Well, at one time, Ellis Burks was one of the most feared hitters in baseball with the bases loaded. He's got 8 lifetime home runs with the sacks jammed. But this year, Ellis is still looking for his first hit with the bases loaded. Again, he's been a Cardinal killer. 22 out of 46 of 478 average starting today, and a big 2-run homer today.
Right now, that home run with walkers in the first inning, the difference in this game. Rockies got 3 early. Cards chipped away to make it 3-2. Colorado scored in the 7th, and they're trying to put it away if they can get a base hit here in the 9th inning. A single here, and the Cards would need at least 2 runners on base in the bottom of this frame just to think about tying it. 1 ball, 1 strike on a splitter, low and away.
Just tell Wade Pagnozzi goes after those pitches. He just has such good confidence in himself. He just kind of dropped down and smothered that pitch. No panic at all.
Staying with the split finger pitch, Parrott misses 2-1. If it should get as far as Larry Walker in this inning, the veteran Rick Honeycutt would be ready.
Rick knows how to pace himself. He knows he's got at least 1 more hitter, Dante Bichette, plus he would get 8 when he gets to the mound. A lot of pitchers, when they get up in the bullpen, really don't know how to warm up. Veterans do.
This is a big pitch for Parrott. He does not want to go to 3-1, but he does. Now he's got to throw a fastball in there.
Well, Ellie Burks is going to sit dead red right here. He's been a pretty disciplined hitter this year and a good hitter for the Rockies. He's kind of squeezing the bat. A little sawdust may be coming out right now as he's looking forward to a pitch to hit.
Well, we'll check the location here. Bases loaded, 2 outs, and a 3-1 delivery. Burke steps out. In basketball, we call that icing the shooter. He's going to make Jeff Parrott think about it for a while. Here's a 3-1. He missed, and the Rockies lead 5-2. 3 walks in the inning. 2 by Jeff Parrott. And the RBI for Burks is 3rd of the day, 33rd of the year.
Well, we'll take a look at this 3-1 pitch. Again, Burks was zoning. He was looking for a pitch in a particular spot. Pagnazzi catches it with the glove up, hoping that maybe the home plate umpire, Terry Tato, would give him a strike, but no such luck. And the Rockies, we talked about their top 2 guys getting on base. Eric Young on base 4 out of 5 times. Burks 2 out of 5. They're right on that same pace, 5 out of 10 times for the table setters today.
Here's Dante Bichette. Retired 3 times by Stottlemyre, 1 time by Corey Bailey.
Dante has hit well over 400 with 2 outs and men in scoring position this year, so this has been a big situation for him.
Bases loaded, 2 outs still, and a bouncer to Gaetti. He'll look the short way, 5-4, but the Rockies pick up another insurance run on a base hit and 3 walks in the 9th inning. Ray Langford leads off. He's got power. So does Gaetti. Mabry swinging good, but the construction's been completed here in St. Louis at least. No football owner to answer to in this ballpark. Bottom of the 9th inning, and the Rockies will dip into their bullpen a little bit further. And Bruce Ruffin will take over and try to nail this one down and collect his 6th save of the year.
Not a very good ERA for your closer. He let one out of the bag on Friday night against the Cincinnati Reds. Rockies had a 5-1 lead going to the 9th, and they lost 7-5. Quentin McCracken stays in the game in center field. Larry Walker will move over to right. That means Ruffin comes in the 3rd spot in the batting order as Dante Bichette made the final out.
Now, Larry Walker likes it when Don Baylor lets him play right field late in the game. Actually requested that last week, and that request against the Cardinals was granted. Here's Ray Langford. And a breaking ball. Ray Langford went. Larry Walker one better. Walker with a 475-foot home run a week ago Saturday night. First one in the upper deck right field at Coors Field. After Walker said he wanted to be the first guy to put one up there. But less than 24 hours later, Ray Langford rifled one up there, and it went 8 feet further. There's the ball, and that's where it hit the green seat in the upper deck. And the Rockies were nice enough to bring that ball to St. Louis to give to Ray Langford.
Yeah, Mike Swanson, they traded an autograph ball to the fan up in the 3rd deck as Langford falls behind 1 and 2. And I don't know if Ray got it before the game or if he's going to get it afterwards. Mike was going to give it to him during batting practice, but there was no batting practice today because of the weather.
One thing Ray hasn't had much of is contact since this game started. A grounder to the pitcher, a strikeout, and a walk. 1 and 2, and he stays with it to foul it off.
First game of a road trip, boy, that is always such a big victory if you can get it, especially the last time the Rockies went out on the road. They lost their first 7, including a heartbreaking game in Atlanta, the second game of the trip, where they were ahead by this identical score, 5-2 in the 9th. So Don Baylor hasn't put this one in the victory column yet.
Langford out for the first one. He's 0 for 3 today.
Ruffin has one of the better sliders in baseball, and that one just disappears on Langford.
Only 5 strikeouts by Rocky pitching today, but they've only walked a couple. Cardinals have only had 5 base hits. Gaetti, one of them back in the 6th inning, a double to left center. And Colorado trying to sneak over that 500 mark. They would be 24-23 if they win today. As we mentioned earlier, the Padres are playing at Montreal behind Joey Hamilton. So there's ground to be gained. Gaetti, can he beat it? No, they got him. Vinny Castilla. He came in along the line, had to throw back across his body. And Gaetti, who's never been fast and even slower since that toe injury, he was out by less than a step.
Talked about that barehanded play at third base. Castilla, just like Gaetti, concentrates on the ball, looking the ball into the bare hand, then making the throw. A lot of times you see those infielders, they want to get a peek at that runner, and they try to catch it and look at the same time. And out by that half step is Gaetti.
It's up to John Mabry. Mabry slumped a little bit in Florida over the weekend. On Friday night against the Marlins, Mabry was 0 for 3 with a sacrifice fly, 0 for 5 on Saturday. Then he broke out with 3 for 3 yesterday before the rain stopped that game in the 8th inning. His slumps don't last long. And he's going to be 0 for 4 today. And the Rockies are going to beat the Cardinals 5-2. Ruff in the save, his 6th of the year. He wins it, saves it for Kevin Ritz, who's 5-4. And some of the guys had very timely hitting today.
Well, for the Rockies, again, the first two guys in the lineup on base, 5 out of 10. The bullpen retired 9 in a row, and the Cardinal left-handed hitters went 0 for 16.
That's Dave Campbell, Bob Carpenter. Some of you will see Boston and Oakland. Some of you, the Braves and the Cubs. Goodbye from St. Louis.